Providence City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. Maybe we all start off with a roll call, Deputy Clerk.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Here.
Councilman Morado.
Yeah.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Here.
Councilwoman Souza.
Here.
Council President Brito.
Yeah. The City of East Providence may meet in executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A2 for litigation claims listed on the agenda. Review the discussion and possible voting on memorandum of understanding between the city and the IBPO Local 569 regarding minimum manning pursuant to RIGL 42-46-52. A, B, C, and D. C will be pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A litigation, Cheryl Curdy versus the City of East Providence. And D, Providence Worcester Railroad Company versus the City of East Providence tax appeal. Would anyone like to make a motion at this point in time to go into executive session?
So move, Mr. President.
Anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
We have a second on the motion. Deputy Clerk, may we have a vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. We will reconvene immediately following the executive session. Chief, would you be joining us? Very good. Evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of East Providence City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. May we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I just ask if those can kindly remove their hats.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk. May we start with a roll call vote, please? Roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Here.
Councilman Morado.
Here.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Here.
Councilwoman Souza. Here. Council President Brito.
Yeah, next item, please.
Motion to seal executive session minutes.
Can I get a motion to seal executive session minutes?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Excuse me, Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council President Brito.
Aye, next item, please.
Next item is the consent calendar for discussion and possible vote. Council journals, the executive session minutes from May 3rd of 2022 and the regular meeting minutes from May 17th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, next item, please.
Next item, previously approved permits and licenses. These are read-ins. The first one is a class F1 application for a special event for alcoholic beverage. The applicant was Paul D'Souza for the Phillips Street Hall Feast. And it was this past weekend from 6 to 10. The same for the one-day entertainment license for that same event, and then the one-day entertainment license for 187 North Brow Street, the Sacred Cow.
And this is not a public hearing.
Nope.
No, we have
Just
on the
read-ins.
docket a motion to bundle the licenses, correct?
Well, this is just the previously,
Oh, previously.
These are previous.
Subject to the.
My apologies.
but you can vote to bundle these two if you'd like.
Motion to bundle
Yep.
these three permits for and licenses as read.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye.
And then you want to do
Next
Motion
item.
to approve the licenses and permits.
Thank
One,
you.
two, three.
Yep.
1, 2, and 3.
Second. You can have it.
You give it to-
Okay, we have a
Okay.
motion, it was seconded.
Councilman Cahoon.
Vote.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Next item, licenses. I have a motion to bundle and a motion to approve in case you want to do so.
Motion to abundant licenses C1 through C11. They have all their information intact.
Yes, they do.
At the pleasure of the council, anyone have any questions regarding any of the item from C1 to C11?
I have
I would
none.
like to bundle.
Move to bundle them all together.
And we have a
Second.
motion to bundle. It was seconded. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye.
Next item is the motion to approve licenses C1 through C11.
Motion to approve all licenses C1 through 11.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. So for those of you who are listed on the C1 through 11, you're all set. Your license has been approved.
Thank you.
Next item is public hearing for a liquor license. The applicant, it's Tiffany Barrera, Luna's Cafe. The address is 615 Waterman Avenue.
Again, this is a public hearing, so is the applicant here at this point in time? Or representative of the applicant? Okay, the applicant is not present at this time. Again, it is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this license, please approach the podium. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this license, please approach the podium. If not, public hearing is now closed at the pleasure of the council.
So Council President and fellow council members, this license applicant has come before the council before for her regular business license. This is the business Roadie Hens that's going to be opening up new, just so everybody knows what the name of the business is, given the LLC name is slightly different. And that's right. I'm motion to approve this.
So the
license.
business name isn't Luna Cafe?
That's their LLC name.
No, that's their
Okay.
LLC. It's
It's their
the
actual business name.
is Rhodey Pen. It's across from the senior center.
Okay. No objections? You have a motion on the floor. Anyone like to second the motion for approval?
I'll second.
All right, we do have a second on that motion. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
President, we have an item pertaining to C1 resolutions, which is authorizing the mayor and enter into a contract with Arcadis US Inc. for bidding and design services. I understand that representatives of Arcadis are present this evening and that they have a presentation they'd like to provide us. So I wonder if we have an appetite for moving them up and letting them on here.
Is the representative from Arcadis here? Oh, she is? Okay. Any
No objection.
objection? No objection? from
No
the council?
objection.
Okay, please approach your podium.
C1.
All right, good evening, council. So we wanted to take a moment to just brief you on a few projects that Arcadis is working on with the city in regards to our sewer treatment facility and our sewer infrastructure, conveyance infrastructure. So we're going to provide you a brief overview of those projects. So we can go to the next slide. So we'll talk a little bit about the water pollution control facility, concrete restoration, and concrete lining project that you've previously approved. That project is under design, and we'll give you an update on that, along with the North Broadway, Woodward Ave, and Fenner Ave project update. So that's a removal and replacement of a sewer main on North Broadway that's collapsed and failed. In addition, what we're coming before you for approval is planned improvements on the sanitary sewer collection system, which will include trenchless rehabilitation of our deficient sewer infrastructure. And we'll provide you some next steps on those projects. So obviously, you know, myself, this is Amy Anderson with Arcadis. Let's go to the next slide. So just some objectives. We'll discuss an update since the last time we met in August 2021, provide an overview on the concrete restoration and lining at the treatment facility. As I mentioned, North Broadway, Woodward Ave, Fenner Ave project, along with the sewer collection system project update and requests for obviously authorization to enter into that design contract to better the city and get the city in a position to ultimately have projects ready for construction when a lot of these federal dollars are released to municipalities and grant opportunities are opened up. It'll put us in an advantageous position to be ready rather than looking for contracts to be designed. So next slide. So as you know, there are significant repairs that need to be made at the treatment facility. The headworks, influent channels, 2 headworks, aerated grit tanks, and effluent channels at the primary clarifiers 1 through 4, aeration tank, splitter box structure, and multiple manhole structures. This is a result of high H2S, hydrogen sulfide, that has deteriorated these structures, particularly from the Barrington flow that comes from Barrington that we accept at the treatment facility. So the next slide. So these will just give you just a brief overview of what we've collected so far, inspections that we've done. And as you can tell, the concrete in a lot of these structures is severely deteriorated and in very poor condition. So this is the headworks facility. We plan on this portion of the project taking approximately 80 days. And one thing to understand about all this work is that the treatment facility still needs to operate at 100%. We don't have the opportunity to pull portions of the treatment facility offline and sacrifice treatment of sewage that is accepted at the plant. So significant complex bypass plans need to be created and come up with. So just this facility will take approximately 80 days to complete, from treatment to covering of the tanks with a new coating. Next slide. So this is the headworks facility. Again, approximately 40 days. You can tell deterioration is very bad. We can kind of flip through these. The next one. Bypass number 3, 55 days. These are the primary clarifiers. As you can see, deterioration in a lot of these wall structures. Next slide. So primary clarifiers 3 and 4. Again, 55 days. This concrete should be smooth. I mean, it's you can actually see the aggregate in the concrete, which is again really bad. Next slide. So bypass number 5, primary clarifier, raised manholes, aeration tank, splitter box structure. 70 days. This will take 70 days to complete. So again, just more deficient fall sections. Next slide. All right, so just to give a little overview on the construction sequence, we anticipate this taking approximately 1.5 years, all said and done from start to finish. Again, the bypass, dewatering, cleaning the tanks, preparing them for the coating is a significant effort and requires a lot of time. Removing damaged concrete is also a big task here. You'll see in the second photo from the top, portions of concrete that are cut out, reinforcement reinstalled, and then patched and prepped before a coating can be put in. So again, I mentioned restoring the concrete surface. And then the final step is obviously applying an epoxy coating, which ultimately will give us another 20 years of life on all these structures. So that's the benefit here. I mean, is getting these tanks back to a point where they're fully functional and operational. So next slide, please. So one important thing to note that was mentioned previous, Barrington Town Council has already authorized and approved up to 40% of construction engineering costs for this project. So they've set aside 40% or up to 1.4 million, whichever is less. We anticipate this project to come in at about 2.5 to 3.5 million, and we are on schedule to bid this project in the late summer, early fall of this year. So hopefully start construction fairly soon. So now I'll pass it to Amy. She'll give you an update on the North Broadway project and the collection system improvements we're looking at.
Can I just ask some questions
Sure.
before we get off this part of it?
Mhm.
A few months ago, we had a presentation on the hundreds of, I don't say miles, but significant sewer lines throughout the city. This presentation is just for the sewer plant in Riverside only, correct?
No, we'll actually be discussing that. So we discussed and spoke to the council regarding deficient pipes throughout the city. We've been working with Arcadis. They've come up with a plan and will be providing us a report that'll outline capital improvements.
Correct.
That we can
But this is for the primary tanks at the sewer plant.
The portion I just described, correct. There are 2 additional projects we're going to get into now that'll outline your.
But that sewer plant, that's in preparation for capping those 4 primary tanks, right?
No, those are 2 separate projects. So the capping of the tanks is a project that was worked on with Suez, now Veolia. That was negotiated as part of our 10-year contract. So that's a separate project. I can give you an update on that. That's actually the materials for that project have been ordered. They're having some sizing issues with the odor control system, but the hope is that will be bid and hopefully construction will start in the next few months.
So those tanks where
tanks that are gonna be capped are the ones that that need these repairs.
Correct. That
And need
tank
to be
also does
realigned
need-
before they are
Yes.
capped.
Yes.
And this couldn't be worked into the current contract as a capital improvement with formerly Suez.
No, I mean, Amy, if you want to talk a little bit more to that, this project is a lot more complex than the odor issue that we're having at the primary
Correct.
tanks, and we felt as if this project was sort of separate in itself. I mean, Barrington is contributing to 90% of the problems here.
Okay.
So that's why we've worked with Barrington separately to negotiate a cost sharing opportunity for the city to ultimately save us probably about $1.4 million. All said and done.
And the capping of the tanks, it's built into that.
That's
new
built into the contract that we see the cost through our monthly fee to the contract operator.
Dan, question. So sort of follow up on that question. The contract, the extension or the option that we signed with Suez, that contains a maintenance portion, but it was capped. I think, what was the amount? It was 1 million?
Yes, so we have 1 million in treatment plant improvements and $50,000 in conveyance or in piping rehabilitation. So if we have a broken service at someone's home that's caused by city root infiltration or just a collapsed pipe, that 50,000 will go towards those repairs. But yeah, there are other capital improvements at the treatment facility that are built into the contract. There's a schedule of improvements.
Yep.
I can share that with you if you'd like to see.
No,
it.
I've got it somewhere, right? I'm just trying to remember that number
Yep.
because that scope of that is specific and certainly this is a much larger scope.
Correct.
Part two, so we have before us tonight a resolution to enter into a contract for design and bid service for, I believe it was specifically 25,000 linear feet, right? Which part of that design and bid is related to what we're seeing tonight? Because it's not all of it, right?
No, so we have, Amy, can you remind me of the exact number? It's 90,000 or 70,000?
I have a slide on it.
Yeah. So we have approximately, I don't want to be off on numbers, but 99,000, about 100,000 linear feet of deficient pipe. We signed a contract with Arcadis to look at 30,000 linear feet of the most critical pipe in the city.
Mhm.
I mean, reviewing 99,000 feet is a big task.
It's
So we-
18 miles. It's-
Correct.
Yeah.
We decided to break that down in smaller contracts, manageable contracts that ultimately the city could afford and be able to bid out in smaller contracts. So you bid out a project for 100,000 linear feet. That's an enormous.
So the design bid that we're looking at tonight, I mean, we're looking at general problems across the board in the presentation.
Right.
But the contract that we're being asked for is for a specific subset.
It
Is
is.
for the design of 30,000 feet of that 100,000.
Got it.
So they'll put together contract documents for bid for 30,000 feet of trenches rehabilitation on our underground sewer.
Thank you.
So just one quick question before you proceed. So that 100,000 linear feet of piping, is that only that's through the sewer treatment center in Riverside? Because we got Narragansett Bay Commission, which is a whole nother separate issue as well. Is
Yes.
that inclusive to that number? That
So
would-
the 100,000 is citywide. It's inclusive of everything in Rumford all the way down to Riverside.
Very good.
We're responsible for the underground utilities throughout the whole city.
Okay.
Finally, one more question. So the way you laid out and presented the different bypasses, is that the order in which you expect to take the projects?
Yep.
By importance, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so just to be clear, this project is obviously under design. Will be going out to bid very soon. The next project Amy will talk about is a project that the council's also already approved for design that Arcadis is currently working on to replace a section of pipe on North Broadway from Center Street to Massasoit Ave, Woodward Ave, and Fenner Ave, which are all pipes that are collapsed. I mean, that's a picture right there of the pipe on North Broadway. So
We
that's
had that presentation already.
correct. You
Yeah.
did. So this will just be an update as to where they stand.
Okay.
And then the third one is obviously give you a sense of where they are now with the 30,000 feet they reviewed. And ultimately ask for vote of approval for the design contract of that 30,000 feet, so we can get it ready, put on the shelf for when we have funding available to go out to bid.
Thanks, Dan. As Dan said, I'm just gonna go through this really high level, just because we have presented on this before, and I don't wanna say things that we've already gone over and over again. But Dan's correct in the fact that we're under contract to do the design for the sewers on North Broadway, Woodward, and Fenner Ave. We're actively in design. We've gotten the survey we need. We had needed a couple more CCTV videos, which Veolia was able to provide us. So we're actively in design of that. Now, the difference between this work and what I'm going to talk about in terms of that trenchless lining work is that this is open cut. That's why the projects are separated. This requires someone to dig up the whole road and replace the utilities. The pipes are just in too bad of condition. Where I'm going to go over next, if you want to go to the next slide, please, is the work that we can get done without digging up the road, the trenchless work. So when you just brought up that 99,000 linear feet, that's what's actually shown here in red. Those are the worst of the worst. We've all seen this picture before. What we did was look at the worst of the worst based on the inspections that were done back in 2013 and 2015, and pull 30,000 linear feet that had the worst defect scores, but were also spread out equally throughout the city. We didn't want to focus, just in one neighborhood or one area. We wanted to say, okay, if we're going to spend this money and investigate these pipes, let's do it citywide. If you go to the next slide. These next couple slides are just really high level as to what we were even doing. We were reviewing CCTV investigations, which is when they put the camera in the pipe. There's a standardized rating system called NASCO ratings. Pipes are graded and defects are rated from a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the worst. When we looked at that analysis overall, looked at all the linear footage, you had 99,000 linear feet of grade 4s and 5s. So that's how we got to where we are. If you go to the next slide. Again, just pictures. These are real pictures from your city, just to show you what we're finding. Next slide. And these are the numbers, the important ones. You have 7,000 linear feet of overall collection system. That includes the portion that flows to Narragansett Bay and the portion that flows to your treatment plant Riverside. 380,000 linear feet were CCTV inspected between 2013 and 2015. Of that 380,000 linear feet, almost 100,000 feet were found to be a grade 4 or grade 5 defects. That's a lot. So that's where we got that 30,000 linear feet from. We said, okay, we can't, like Dan mentioned, we can't look at 100,000 linear feet at once. That doesn't make sense. Let's find your worst of the worst and just start there as your phase 1. Next slide. So we have been under contract to re-review that 30,000 linear feet, gather as much information as we can, look at those videos, come up with rehabilitation recommendations. In doing that, of the 30,000 linear feet, we found 20 locations that need a spot repair, a dig spot repair, meaning, they're going to have to dig a small portion of the road, fix the collapsed pipe, then we can line right through it. So you're not talking huge, digging up your whole road. You're just fixing something. Sometimes the DPW can do that. Sometimes you have a contractor who can go through and do them all at once. And some of them we're actually going to add into that North Broadway contract just because we'll already have a contractor out here. We needed to re-inspect 1,500 linear feet, which Suez was able to get done for us. 26,500 linear feet, which is a majority of what we reviewed, needs manhole to manhole trenchless liners. These pipes are in horrendous shape, and that is the most cost-effective way to rehabilitate them. Once you put that liner in, you now have basically a pipe inside a pipe. So you have basically a brand new pipe. You don't have to worry about collapses. It helps with blockages. And then we have 15 locations where you don't actually need that full manhole to manhole liner. You just need a smaller liner that will go in and fix, say, one crack. And so you still get that structural rehab, but you don't need to spend the money to the whole manhole to manhole liner. Next slide. And these are 2 pictures that you've seen before. These are both in East Providence. The one on the left is in Riverside. That's near Fenner Ave. Fenner Ave is now included as one of the pipes we are doing as part of that dig contract with North Broadway. We are going to actually fix the temporary fix that was put in there. And then the one on the right's a little older that I have to be honest, I got off of the news, but that's East Providence. Next slide. So basically, where do we go from here? We did submit on the project priority list for SRF funding. And to do that, the city would need to commit, that's how SRF funding works, would need to commit $2.5 to $3 million in 2024 to receive the SRF money to do the sewer rehab construction funds. This is part of that BIL money. Construction funds would need to be expended by 2026. We did apply for $12 million of SRF money for the project priority list. They were looking for people to put in as many projects as they could. Just to get on the list, you can't actually receive the monies if you're not on the list. So, and then the next slide. So where we are tonight, again, what we're looking to do is get authorization to get that sewer rehab designed, have, plans and specs put together so that when the money is available, we have a shovel-ready project.
Question. Will these projects, the ones that need to be cut and dug up, will it be coordinated with future roads that are on the list to be paved? In other words, don't pave them yet until we fix those.
Yeah, as best we can.
best
I
we
mean, there are obviously new roads that probably have been paved that potentially have a 4 and 5 defect that was identified between 2013 and 2015. My understanding is we've never really taken a good look at the condition of these pipes until the last year or so. So ideally, the hope is that being trenchless technology, all we have to do is access from manhole to manhole, can shoot a liner through with hopefully minimal impacts to new roadways.
Truex, for example.
Right.
So Arcadis is just for, you say design, you're doing the design, the company. I'm assuming that you're kind of like the project manager. The company is like a project, acting like a projects manager, putting the plans together, putting the proper language or the RFPs, put out for bid. That's where the $70,000 is going to come in for, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's plans associated with this. There are specifications. You have professional engineers working on developing this plan set.
And the last question, which I believe is in the resolution also, the ARPA funds, that can also be utilized for this, which is a clear
Correct.
usage of those funds.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. President, a couple questions. Obviously, we have tremendous amount of defective pipes. What do you attribute the major reason for that? Is it just that they're old? I understand we just started looking through them this year. So it's basically it's the
95%, maybe even close to 100% of the city is vitrified clay pipe, which is some pipe age back close to almost 100 years.
Yep.
That pipe, the lifespan of that pipe is 50 to 70, if that. I mean, we're obviously getting our money's worth, but we're also starting to see that 1,000 linear feet of our 700,000 is critically deficient. The longer we wait, the more pipe we start cutting into the asphalt and,
Right.
and opening up roadways.
Now, in the event of a major break, I was talking to a family in another city that had in their street in front of their house, sewer line collapse. Their house and 3 or 4 adjoining houses filled bottom level, the first floor of the house and the basement filled with raw sewage. That's what we're looking at, right? If we had a collapse. And I know there've been a couple of minor cases through the years, some not so minor maybe, but that's an example of what is definitely a possibility if we do nothing.
Depending on the area in the city, if we have the right pipe collapse, we could see.
I mean, this home had raw sewage come up in the house. I don't know how that, but it, filled the cellar and then it came up through the fixtures on the first floor, like the entire house was ruined. And obviously major court case and problems of who's paying, and it couldn't even be fixed. So I'm not being dramatic, that this type of thing could happen if we have these 100-year-old pipes burst.
It's not dramatic, it's real reality.
Reality.
I hope I never get that phone call that
Yep.
homes are filled with sewage, but unfortunately it could happen.
I know on the street that I live now, our neighbor told me he did have a problem because the pumping station, there was a problem, didn't work, rainstorm, so it does happen. Finally, Amy, what do you recommend? And Dan, a concern I have is, we've talked about a timetable here. Are you anticipating problems that everyone is having now, from the city level to nationally, with supply chains, with workers? I know that some projects we've started, we can't really finish them because of all of these issues. What do you foresee
So
with this?
for open cut work, yeah, there's definitely supply chain issues getting pipe and material. We are experiencing that on other projects. However, we are not experiencing it at all right now with lining projects. The materials are manufactured locally. So far, there hasn't been an issue. So that's all I can say. Everyone's just doing the best they
And I
can.
know there's no guarantee, I'm not.
Yeah. Like I said, we have 3 or 4 lining projects going on right now with no supply chain issues at all and staff readily available to work.
So certainly makes no sense to keep waiting and delay things like this. We got another 100 years, why not?
Good try.
Yeah,
Can we go
Second.
back just real quick? I'm sorry.
no, I'm done.
Can we jump back to slide 14 for a minute?
And we, I know we've shared with the council in the past the map. Oh, actually, no. Okay. We can certainly share an electronic copy of that with the council. We have a list of all the streets as well that are associated with all those red markings.
Well, it seems like I'm just looking at it, right, and certainly this isn't a scientific assessment, right? But where the red is clustered, looks like our older neighborhoods, where our older houses are. And, it's a little bit better where kind of newer developments are, which seems to be the case, right? A housing development is built, you put a new sewer line, and then you walk away from it until it does this, right? And is that just a chronic problem that there's no getting around, or is there some kind of ongoing, maintenance strategy that you can put in place so that you don't just walk away from?
Yeah, I mean, other than you can routinely jet sewer lines, but I mean, these issues, and Amy, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is just attributed to age. I mean, and lack of rehabilitation.
Okay.
I mean, we just need to, it's one of those items that a lot of other municipalities have capital improvement set aside to do X number of linear feet a year of old mains. They're just old clay pipe that is close to its life or past its useful life that they're just maintaining, and they'll get another 50 years out of it with a new structural liner that costs a whole lot less money than digging up that whole road for a 300-foot section.
Right, it's not anywhere near as disruptive.
Right.
Sure.
You're at $60 a linear foot for a liner versus $250
Yeah.
for open cut, if not more nowadays. So it's significant cost savings.
So when we go through, let's say we approve the resolution tonight, put in place a design contract upon which another contractor will bid in and build, but not maintain, right? It's just a bid and build, right, contract. Presumably that is going to be under the low bidder scenario, or?
Yeah, there would be a formal bid process, go to the low bidder. I mean, in the Northeast, there's probably 2 or 3 contractors that actually do this type of work.
And it's appropriate for a low bid? It's not something that needs to be negotiated or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yep. No, there's a project of this size will certainly attract the 2 or 3 contractors you see throughout the Northeast.
And we write qualifications in the spec to make sure that we're getting a qualified person.
so you can sort of do your pre-scan, if you will, and then, or you might not even need to, it's just don't even bother proposing if
Right.
you don't have these. Okay,
If you don't have the capabilities to
Yeah.
do.
Right.
need not apply. Yep.
So Amy, the approval for tonight's resolution is both projects, right? The collection system and the sewer plant.
No, it's
Just
just
the
for
collection.
the design of
Okay.
the 30,000 or approximately 30,000 linear feet to put together plans and specifications and basically bring the project to bid.
What, Dan, would be the time frame once that goes out and is approved and back to the council? Would we anticipate starting
we'll probably come to you, I would assume, in the next few months with the report that Arcadis developed. But from a time frame for construction of this, if you were to approve this tonight, we don't have one. I mean, ideally, we look every day for grant opportunities and other opportunities from the federal government. There's a lot of funding in the build program. And so ideally we'll get, I would like to get a lot of this funded through some of those opportunities so that we're not actually impacting.
So the SRF that you mentioned that we applied for, the 12 million.
Yep.
You said there's a time limit, right? It has to be expended in, 3 years from today?
Right. And that 12 million is a placeholder. It's not,
Okay.
it's not set in stone.
Sure.
But the requirement to potentially to qualify for the federal funding requires us to be on the PPL.
Okay.
So the intent was to ask for 12 million. That'll pretty much get us through the 100 linear feet of
Right.
pipe. But
Gotcha.
I mean, knowing that we likely won't get all that funding, but it's an ask to at least get us in the right, moving in the
Move
right
that
direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the timeline is quick, so you have to have that shovel-ready project.
Well, that's what I mean.
Right.
So, how quickly, getting the design, getting the returns on the bids, putting that all into play, getting approved for this and starting, to get it accomplished so that we can use the assets that we give.
You're probably looking at what, next spring for the most part, I would think.
I mean, if we can secure funding, I would love to start next spring. That would be
Yeah.
fantastic.
That's being generous, yes.
Right.
It's not anything that's going to be stopped.
It's
Yeah.
if we can secure funding and if
Right.
we have an avenue to get that funding.
Mhm.
Yep. But without having these projects ready, I think the biggest concern that I have is already understanding how the consulting world is already so backed up with
Mhm.
requests from municipalities. It's only going to get worse with all the ARPA funds that are available. They're utilizing these funds to do similar things that we're doing, right? So we want to be on the forefront. We want these projects ready for design. We want to be able to say, all right, we have these projects ready and all these other municipalities are waiting in line to actually design these projects. So
Right.
let's get ahead and try to do it now so that we have it ready to go.
Any other further questions from the council? With that being said, Councilman Cahoon, you want to phrase that into a motion?
Yeah, I just wanted to state for the record again, that's the scope is 26,000 linear feet sanitary sewer. And the amount associated with the contract is $70,100. So with that said, move to approve the resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Arcadis US Inc. for the design and bidding phase services related to the East Providence sanitary sewer rehabilitation design.
Second.
Okay. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon,
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item is communications. Candy Seal. Remarks relating to the bond resolution discussion at the May 17th, 2022 City Council meeting.
Ms. Seal? Is it green?
Now I see the
There
light.
it is. Good to go.
Thank you. Thank you. For anyone keeping track, my remarks will take about 8 to 10 minutes. I'll try to do it quickly. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Candy Seal. I am a resident of East Providence and a director of the nonprofit corporation Keep Metacomet Green. I wasn't able to attend your council meeting on May 17th. I was out of state when you rejected a resolution to place a bond referendum on the November ballot to let the voters decide the future of Metacomet. I come before you tonight to address a couple of issues and to answer rhetorical questions that my KMG colleagues were prohibited from answering that night. Mr. Brito, you called KMG leaders deceitful for gathering signatures for the petition without including the cost of eminent domain. Your characterization of us joins a long list of inappropriate name calling over the past 2 years, where you have shown your frustration by calling us mean, malicious, nasty, ugly, and childish. We have come to expect these insults from you, but I can assure you that many members of the public who are now turning their attention to this issue are appalled by your insinuation. I gathered a number of these signatures myself. To anyone who asked, I explained that the cost would be worked out over the next few months and that they would have the opportunity to vote for or against the referendum, but that a reasonable estimate would be $15 to $20 million. If the resolution has passed to let the voters decide, the details of eminent domain would have been thoroughly vetted, debated, and explained to the voters in the 5 months between now and November, and we, the voters, would have had made our decision then. At the May 17th meeting, Mr. David O'Connell, a frequent commenter on this issue and a member of the Waterfront District Commission himself, presented 28 signatures in opposition to the resolution. He stated that not one person had refused him. While I was gathering signatures, very few were reluctant to sign, and those few people mentioned fear of retaliation or retribution of some kind. Isn't that a sad commentary? Mr. Brito, you also said once again that Metacomet was a failed golf course. That can't be further from the truth, and it is deceitful to suggest otherwise. KMG has rallied in front of Metacomet nearly every Saturday since July 2020, unless inclement weather has kept us away. Until the course was closed by the developer, we saw a continuous flow of golfers into the Met, and even more so when the course was open to the public briefly in its final weeks. You could have seen this for yourself had you ever bothered to stop by. You could also have seen the waves and heard the honks of support from drivers passing by on the parkway. You can still see and hear it. We're still out there today. The support from the community grows every week. The golf course didn't fail. The system failed it. From unsound management by the original owners, which led to their financial troubles, to the city's failure to seize the property for unpaid tax and water bills when the opportunity presented itself, Metacomet was betrayed. From the efforts of a former East Providence state legislator, a member of the developer's legal team, to designate the area as an opportunity zone to give a potential developer untold tax incentives, to this council majority that approved the rezone and then dug in its heels and refused to let the voters decide its fate, Metacomet wasn't given a chance to succeed. Mr. Brito, you posed a number of rhetorical questions and refused to listen to our answers. What would the city do with the Metacomet property if we purchased it? What would it cost? How would we pay for it? Well, at this point in this term of the council, it's a moot point. But I believe you and the public deserve to hear the answers that we would have given on May 17th. What to do with it? 2 years ago at a public hearing, KMG said, quote, purchase a property for a city recreation center for young and old. 2 years ago. As an aside, we also recommended, let the people of East Providence decide the future of our city through a ballot resolution. This is an extremely important issue and a decision that should not be left to 5 individuals. The electorate deserves to be heard, end quote. When the developer tore down the clubhouse, we urged that a long desired community center be built on its footprint and that the 18-hole course be leased out to a professional management group to run as a municipal course open to the public. How much will it cost? We do not know the exact cost to purchase the Met, and neither do you. We can make an educated guess, though. The appraisal of the property in March 2021 led to an evaluation of $8.2 million. This figure was based on the highest and best use of open space property, given land use regulations, which the appraiser determined was live workspace. In fact, he specifically mentioned in his report a 235 unit live work development with a maximum building footprint of 411,700 square feet. This massive construction project doesn't sound all that different from what the developer is proposing now. But for argument's sake, add an additional 50% to the evaluation, which brings it up to 12 million. Add another 50% for using eminent domain for economic gain and leasing out the golf course, and we have a total of 18 million. Add in another 2 million to remediate the damage done to the course through mismanagement and neglect, and we have a total of $20 million. That's a fair ballpark estimate. Mr. Brito tells us that 30 million is about right. Where did that number come from? Who's deceiving the public now? How to pay for it? When eminent domain was first raised last year, the figure of $10 million was discussed. By our analysis, a bond of $10 million over a 20-year period at a moderate interest rate would have cost the average taxpayer under $15 per year, about $1.25 per month. Now looking at a potential $18 to $20 million, we estimate the cost to the average taxpayer as approximately $30 per year or $2.50 per month. This assumes that the entire financial burden would be on the taxpayers. But we know that leasing the 18-hole golf course to a management company for public use could bring in upwards of $250,000 annually. The management firm would maintain the course and make its money through greens fees and golf equipment sales. Fees from the use of the community center would bring in additional revenue to the city. Maintenance of the city would fall to the city. Maintenance of the center would fall to the city, as it would in any other location. Federal and state grants in a partnership with the Nature Conservancy could fund the upkeep of the remainder of the property as a park. Just last week, Mayor De Silva hosted Governor McKee and the entire Rhode Island congressional delegation at a closed media event to launch a $2.5 million grant writing assistance program. Community groups such as KMG could pitch in to help maintain it as well. This doesn't even take into consideration the $1 billion that Rhode Island has in its coffers for statewide distribution. Mr. Cahoon, you suggested that given an opportunity, voters would jump at the chance to reduce taxes by 25%. I assume this was attempted humor, but we're not laughing. You are a smart and well-educated guy. Please don't assume that the rest of us are not. Mr. Rodrick, you dangle the possibility that you might be persuaded to vote for the resolution by an outpouring support by the residents. I guess the wishes of 1,045 residents wasn't enough to convince you. If those 1,045 people had shown up in these chambers in person to demand that their voices be heard, would that have made a difference? Probably not. Mr. Morado, Ms. Souza, I know it must be very difficult to be constantly in the minority on this issue, but we thank you as always for your efforts. I welcome comments and questions. Thank you.
I'll be happy to address some of your comments, actually. First and foremost, and I'll try to go down the list as
Thank you.
convenient as possible. I just couldn't keep up with what you were saying, but
I can give you a copy of my remarks if you'd like.
not at this point in time, but I'll be more than happy to take it afterwards so I can
Thank you.
address them as well, but I'll try to address them as much as possible. When you said that I considered, or I said that KMG leaders are deceitful, what I actually said was the petition was deceitful. And I went on to explain that the petition in itself doesn't give the total dollar amount for those people who are actually signing the petition.
If I may, Mr. Brito, we wrote the petition,
I
so that
understand that.
makes us deceitful.
Okay, well then if that's the way you want to take it, then you could take it that
That's the
way.
way we took it. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
But that's exactly what I said. The petition in itself did not include any numbers. There was no work, there was no due diligence done to that petition. All it essentially said was that we want to take it by eminent domain. But you don't go on and talk about the cost of the, as you explained earlier, the roughly estimated between what you said, $15 and $20 million, $15 and $20 million. But you don't include that in your petition.
Where did you
people
get your
sign it.
30 million, Mr. Brito?
Excuse me?
Where did you get your 30 million?
I was throwing the number out because of the fact that I said it was rezoned, and because it was rezoned, therefore it's no longer $8.2 million. We both know that because you're estimating at $15 to $20 million. Either way, you should, if you and your party decide that, or if you want something, a petition that people to sign, I would suspect that you would have done. You had 2 years to do this homework, to come up with a dollar figure, whether you go out and have it estimated, or appraised or otherwise. And none of that work has been done. What you want the council to vote on is that we want the public to put it on the ballot for a survey. You want a survey, you can always do a survey. Why would we put it on the ballot when there was no homework done? There was no due diligence done to the work that you're representing.
I may repeat, Mr. Brito, if I may, that there are 5 years between now, 5 months between now and November. All the figures would have come out. They would have been debated. They would have been vetted. We could have said one figure. Someone else could have said another figure. Everything would have been out there for the public, and the voters could have decided.
But the ownership's on you to come up with that number. It's not on the council. The ownership's on you to come up. Your job is to convince me, to convince us. It's
We
not
don't
my
want to
job to
convince you.
convince you. It's your job to convince us. And you haven't showed where
It's
you
your
have
job to
convinced me.
represent us, Mr. Brito.
I represent the entire city. You're absolutely right. Not just a small group of people. I represent the
1,045.
entire group. But I
1,045 people. If they had all marched into this chambers,
I mean, and you did the same thing with me early on with the signatures that you had people sign your petition on. And you said, those people are going to vote against me. And I called you out on that petition, and there was 3,500 signatures at the time. And I said, I can guarantee you all 3,500 signatures weren't from East Providence residents.
Well-
Then you all turned around and you said, well, Brito said, no one from East Providence, give him a call. No one from East Providence signed the petition.
wow. When we first began, Lynn Miller actually set up a petition on change.org about not developing the Metacomet property. Over the course of time, 5,200 people signed that petition. We never at any time suggested that all those 5,200 people were from East Providence. There were people who cared. There were people who used to be in East Providence. There are people who drive by it. There are people all over the region. We never, as I said, indicated that those 5,200
No,
people
what
were
was
all
said
from
was
East Providence.
they
We
won't
never
vote for
said
me.
that they weren't going to be voting for you. Who
Oh,
said
it
that?
was
I
said
never
at that
said
point in
that.
time.
I never said that.
I didn't say you.
Who?
Dennis Pacheco was one of them.
Dennis Pacheco. He's not, he
He's not
doesn't
what?
represent KMG. He's talking about social
Yeah, but
media.
I mean, these are people, yeah, but these
Talk
are
about
people on
social
your
media.
page. These are people on your page
We
who are
can't control
calling me
what they
out.
say.
And when you talk about the CFO and insults and names, same things happen on your page. How many names have you all been calling me on your page? You allow it. You're an administrator, right? You allow it. You don't stop it. But when I retaliate, no one likes it. And I don't retaliate on social media. I call you out in person
Well,
when
you
you're
know,
when
Mr.
you're here
Brito,
at the meeting.
social media is one thing.
Social media meaning KMG website is what I'm referring to.
Social media is one thing. The council chambers, this dais here is quite another.
Okay, so in other words, it's okay for you to call, not meaning you particular, but your group, your organization, to make these false accusations about me and for me not to respond. That's what I did. All I did was respond.
Then respond on social media, not from the dais.
I'm
Don't call us
talking about
nasty, malicious,
KMG,
ugly, and childish from the dais.
keep
and then think you can
Metacomet
get
Green
away with it.
website. I'm not talking about any other website that's out there. Your website, which you are the administrator of.
By the way, we don't have a
The
website.
insults
it's
and
a
the
Facebook
accusations
page.
that were made on that website about me. In fact, people came up to me afterwards and were saying, boy, those people, boy, I can't believe what those people say on that website there.
We don't
and-
have a website. It's a Facebook page.
Okay, well, a Facebook page, social media, going back to what I said earlier, social media. So if you're going to get, if you want to say this is a one-sided, lopsided where we're going to call you out, but don't call us out, it's insulting for me. Well, then don't call me out. And I have absolutely, as I see some in your public, I have nothing to say with you then. And I certainly won't say anything on social media or in the chambers. But you can't, at what point in time, and I said this before and I'll say it again, that I raised my right hand when I took an oath to this office that I was going to sit, that I was going to be your punching bag or anybody else out there's punching bag, that I can't retaliate. At what point in time? So all I'm doing is retaliating. All I'm doing is if I
All I'm
call you
doing is
back, if I
retaliating.
call you a name
All right.
back, oh, I'm sorry. I
All I'm doing is
hurt you. I
retaliating.
insulted you.
understand.
I'm sorry. I hurt your feelings.
I
But
understand.
in the meantime, you're all going back and forth. The things that you all say about me on KMG's Facebook page, it's acceptable to the administrators.
We do not, what we don't allow is for anyone to suggest that anyone up here or in public office is corrupt, taking a bribe, anything like
It's been
that.
said on your page many a times. You see his new car? It's been saying that. He's taking money from the developer. It's been said that as well.
We take it down.
No, you didn't. No, you haven't.
Mr.
Try is
Brito,
the word. You
Chris-
don't,
Mr. Brito, we're not going to get anywhere here. There is a
You-
vast
you-
difference
you
between
asked-
social media
okay.
and the
You made
real
the
world.
accusations. You made the accusations and I'm defending those accusations. Okay?
Let's move on.
All right, please do. I said Metacomet was a failed golf course.
And I
That's
say-
why it's not here today. It failed. You might think otherwise, but if it was a profitable running company or golf course, they would be there today. It's not.
The original owners management failed it. They weren't good
And that's what I
businessmen,
said, and you
were
said they
golfers.
didn't fail, but you're saying the
The
original managers
Jackson
failed.
Investment Group came in with the at least suggestion that they were going to maintain it, retain it, and run it. And then surprisingly, I don't know how this came about, Marshall was right there to buy it.
That's between two private entities. Has
So
nothing to do with the
The
city.
golf course didn't fail, the system failed it.
You,
That was my,
however way you want to phrase it to
Good.
make you feel better about yourself,
I feel better about
it's
myself.
no longer a golf course. At the end of the day, it's no longer a golf course.
The system failed.
Okay, so if you ever read the article, there's a golf article by a former Metacomment employee, excuse me, a former Metacomment member
Yes.
who was a member for 12 years there, and I can
Yes.
get you that article as well. And it talks about he dissects everything that happened with Metacomment and where it was and what it took it to,
Mhm.
and why it failed as a golf course.
And what was that?
And he just talked about how the members weren't aware of what's going on, or some of the members knew, other members didn't know what was going on. Members were leaving because there were no amenities for the members that were there. So I, as a golfer who was a member, I want to have my family join, but my family, there's no golf course, excuse me, there's no tennis courts, no amenities, swimming pools, as you see with a lot of these other. So they started little by little leaving. In addition to that, slowly but surely, the golf course couldn't just keep up with their payments, including what you alluded to, city taxes, water, and so things to that.
So I repeat, the system failed the golf
It-
course.
Why the system fail? It's management. Management, or better yet, their membership started to dwell and they just didn't have the money. So I don't know how that's the system failed that.
The management
It's-
system.
And then it's
City
a,
council not taking it when it could have.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
So this, Ms. Seal asked to be put on the
Yes.
agenda under public comment. She gave her
No,
public,
not public comment. This is.
no, this
excuse me,
is,
communications, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr.
communications.
Marcelo.
Thank you, I'm sorry, that's my error. Our rules require that she be given an opportunity to give her statement. She gave her statement. We're now getting a little bit of a back and forth and going over beyond what she said on her public comment. Communications, I'm sorry.
Communication.
Sorry. And I just fearful of an open meetings violation. So you said your piece. I know that you want to respond and I just don't think this is the appropriate forum to do so. And to go back and forth on different topics, we're now talking about the sale between two private developers, which had nothing to do with the city. We're way beyond what really should be on the government docket on the agenda tonight as to what the communication was initiated to be. And the communication was remarks relating to the bond resolution discussion. And we're way beyond that now when we start talking about
I
that.
didn't initiate.
No, I understand that, but I just want, it's my job to make sure that these people follow the law,
I know,
as you
I
know.
that, yes.
And so
I
I'm
know that,
interjecting as
but-
I'm interjecting as the parliamentarian of this council, and I'm suggesting that we now move on.
and
Thank you,
I
Mr.
just want to
Marcelo.
make a quick statement as well as why I didn't allow anyone to speak last meeting is because the last time I allowed that, you filed an open meetings act against me.
No,
Yes, you did. You did. When I allowed one of your members, one of your administrators about affordable housing, we were talking about the golf course, we went on to affordable housing. Mr. Solicitor, did they file a complaint with the Attorney General's Act, Attorney General's office against me?
we have filed several, Mr.
No,
Bell,
me
because
in
minutes-
particular. No,
Minutes were
I,
not filed in a timely fashion.
But
right,
now I
that's
really
separate.
have to interject. So we're
Thank you,
way,
Mr.
now
Marshall.
we're
Thank you
way
for your
beyond.
written.
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
But my only concern is they had 4 votes on the council. They needed 3 votes and they were more concerned about my 1 vote. And the last 24 months, that's what you spent focusing on me in 24 months. I was just a single person up here who was who was for the development for all the reasons I stated.
I'm
You had
sorry your
4
feelings
votes.
have been hurt, Mr. Britta.
My feelings aren't hurt.
Well-
I'm not on the losing end of this.
Huh.
So you had 4 votes,
Mr.
you needed
Marcella.
3 votes, but yet you focused on my 1 vote. And one of the things that I said to one of your administrators at the time early on is that I said, don't sacrifice the war to win the battle.
Don't sacrifice the war to win the battle.
So I really think it's in time to move
Yeah,
on.
So
There'll
too,
be
Mr.
there'll be a
Thank you. I know.
open
Let's-
meetings
thank
act
you.
violations
Appreciate
filed
your
against
time.
me.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so much.
as well. Next item, please.
Next item is public comment. We have Jen Tierney from 54 Mary Ave on the native species ordinance.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
EP Urban Forest is a citywide group of neighbors who promote and enhance our urban forest. I've been here before. We are a group of people who remember growing up with trees and open space in East Providence. And we have seen that that has really reduced over the decades. So we support the native species ordinance that you gave first passage to at the last meeting. The reasons for that is that native species promote biodiversity, which means that the urban forest that we have would suffer from less disease and infestation. So that makes it a really good investment. They also promote wildlife habitat, which is part of the ecosystem. And since everything is all one big web, if you want to put it that way, wildlife habitat is actually important to East Providence. They also promote resilience, which is a big word in these climate changing times. So it's overall, it's a good investment. And even though some people think that they're pretty, those calorie pears that you see, they don't last very long because they can't handle the cold weather, and so they split. So they're actually a very short-term investment. It's just not a good way to spend your money. So this ordinance would be the first such law in the state. It has been done in other places, but not in Rhode Island. So that would make East Providence a model. It would make us look good in the news. And it would make us, a model for environmental policy and urban forest management, which is what we're working toward. Because there's really no minuses to this particular law. So we hope that you agree that this is an easy one to pass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That concludes public comment.
Mr. President, can I interject? I notice Fire Chief is in the audience. I don't know if he's on the agenda, but with all that they've been going through with their schedules and the time they put in through the pandemic, is there some reason we could move them up? I don't know if the chief and Captain Poppin, if you're just here to visit or if they have something on the, you are on the docket, because I was looking what. Oh, okay. I don't know how far along we are with that, but I hate to see them stay. It's been our policy to. Okay, you can hang in a little bit. Thanks.
We'll try to speed it up for you.
Next item is council members. The first one is East Providence Tree Commission update by Councilwoman Souza, discussion only.
Thank you. So Carol, if you wouldn't mind coming up. So as I spoke briefly the last council meeting, when the ordinance for the native tree was presented, I gave a little bit of what was going on with this commission. And I asked the chair, Carol, to come up and give the council a little bit more detailed progress on all the good work that they've been doing and what the needs are, and for the city council to be aware of those needs so that we can better support the projects that are coming along for the year.
Yeah, thank you for your time and attention this evening. My name is Carol Auer. I am the chair of the relatively new East Providence Tree Commission. I am a resident in Riverside, and I'm also a professor emerita from the University of Connecticut. I spent 25 years at the University of Connecticut doing teaching and research projects in the Department of Plant Science. So just to give you a little background on the Tree Commission, members were appointed by the mayor in February of 2021, and the first meeting was held in May of last year. Although the commission was established on paper more than 10 years prior to that, we apparently were the first people to be appointed to the commission. So we activated the commission, initiated different kinds of projects that I'm going to briefly talk about now. The overall purpose of the commission, as stated in the ordinance, is to advance policies and activities for the protection, planting, maintenance, and removal of trees on public property, to make recommendations to the council concerning the urban forest and best management practices. And also, as the city lawyer explained to us at our first meeting, we have a quasi-judicial role, which means that the commission is supposed to provide an unbiased decision when tree removal permits are appealed by citizens or homeowners. And I will come back to this point in a minute. 3 enthusiastic citizens have been appointed to the commission. This includes Jen Tierney, Joe Gibson, and Claire Tierney. We have the staff support of Johanna Walsek in the planning department. Ex officio members are Anna Souza, and also the city forester is mentioned in the ordinance. However, we do not have a city forester, and the tree warden has been appointed in his stead. So what are some of our accomplishments to date? Even though we are a new commission, we have met 7 times in the last year. We've worked to support capital improvements budget item for tree planting, new tree planting projects. We've also written some grant proposals with staff. We've supported Johanna in writing a grant proposal that was submitted yesterday to TD Bank. And we're hoping that that will be funded and that we would have money for approximately 44 new trees for the city. So that's the kind of work that we like to be involved with. We developed a map with city staff that combined the tree equity scores with GIS layers, such as layers representing city property, green space, and so forth. And the purpose of this exercise was to develop a tool that would allow us to identify areas of the city that have a low tree equity score, meaning that they have the fewest trees and the least amount of green space in the city. And these are the areas that we would like to prioritize for future tree planting projects. We developed a landscape plan for Orlo Avenue Elementary School. We developed the language for a new ordinance to promote the planting of native trees. You just heard a public comment on that, and we'll be coming back to that later in your agenda. And we have been supporting the tree inventory project, which has been a major undertaking in the last year, captured data on over 6,000 street trees in the city, and is crucial to future management plans. So just to summarize briefly, what are some of the challenges that the commission is facing? We really need to think about how the commission, since we are the first, how can we develop to serve the community in the best way possible? So I want to briefly mention 3 areas of concern. We need to develop a better management, public information, and communication system about our street trees and other public trees. This became apparent in Kent Heights a few weeks ago. A homeowner asked for removal of 2 trees and received approval from the tree warden. However, neighbors and other residents saw that the trees had been tagged with paint, and they were unhappy with this result. So this unleashed a slew of emails, phone conversations, and different things. And it came out that neighbors and many other people in the community were in favor of protecting the trees. Eventually, the mayor stepped in and stopped the removal of these healthy trees. I went and looked at them. They are completely healthy little leaf lindens in sort of the prime of their life. So frankly, I think this is not the best way to manage our urban forest. And I think we need 4 basic things: policies, urban forest management plan, transparency, and better communication mechanisms with the public. With regards to communication, the city website right now has basically no information about management policies for street trees or conditions for removal of trees. If you go to the website and go to the search bar and you type in tree removal permit, you come to a completely unsupported page that has some boxes where you can put in your name and address, but there's no information attached to it. So it's something that needs to be worked on, and we're hoping that we can move forward with some improvements there. So the commission has questions, as I said, and we're looking for some information about what are the policies regarding management and removal. How are these policies presented to the public? How will they be advertised? What are the procedures for tree removal? What notification is given to neighbors or the general public? There's many models for this. Utility companies deal with tree removal all the time. And so there's many models, as I said, available for us to look at. Appeals process, that's another thing. That's in the ordinance, actually. The ordinance that initiates the tree commission talks about the job of the tree commission as an appeals, as being part of the appeals process. So this means that if citizens or homeowners were unhappy with a decision made in DPW about management of some trees, they could come to the tree commission and have some discussion and get some kind of help and remediation, some kind of mediation activities from the commission. However, this process does not exist at present. So it's impossible right now for the tree commission to act in this quasi-judicial space. There's other policies and procedures that we have questions about, but I'll just move on to my second area of concern. The council approved $25,000 in the capital improvements budget for trees in 2021 and 2022. The tree commission is very grateful for that support for the urban forest in the city. But we do wonder how that money is being spent. We do know that some of the money is being used in a pilot project along Bullocks Point Avenue. And that is a good initiative. It's a good effort and it should be continued. However, this year, the tree commission hoped to use some money to plant new trees at the Orlo Avenue School. We developed a detailed proposal in our commission meetings and we sent it to the mayor asking for a portion of the budget in the current fiscal year to move that project forward. If you've seen Orlo Avenue School, you know that there are 3 sad older trees around the school. And it really is a site that cries out for more attention and new landscaping. So we did put forward a very detailed proposal. Be happy to share that with you. We have not received an answer. And so we are left wondering, how can the commission improve tree equity in the city and provide shade to playgrounds and make other improvements in the urban forest? The third issue that I want to mention is that the current ordinances clearly describe duties and responsibilities for a city or forester. Now, a city forester did work here until about 2008. There was a position called the city forester. Among the many things that need attention and that could come under the purview of a city forester would be the creation of an urban forest management plan. A management plan simply describes policies, procedures, best practices for the city when it comes to the urban forest. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of examples of urban forest management plans that have been adopted by cities across the country. I could provide you with many, many examples. And what we would like to do then is build on these other models and try to, with the help of a city forester, develop something for our city. In closing, I think a management plan is essential, along with the better communications that I mentioned earlier, to increase resilience in the face of climate change, to help the trees, improve the tree canopy and capture carbon, and also to just generally improve the health and well-being of our citizens and our neighbors in East Providence. Thank you for your time and attention. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I don't. I just wanted to say thank you, Carol, and to your members for all the work that you guys put in to this commission. A lot of good ideas and a lot of good research has gone into it. And it's really amazing to hear and learn because I'm a green thumb, but a very novice green thumb, only what my dad has taught me over the years. So I've learned a lot attending these meetings, and there's, for me, a lot to know still. And I think it's important that the council, who I believe cares about the tree canopy and the heat index across the city in the future of the city and the generations to enjoy, to be aware of these things and to hear the areas of improvement that we can make. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
No,
All right.
thank you very much. Okay, next item, please.
Next item, policing non-registered motorized vehicles, enforcement of ordinances. Councilwoman Souza, discussion only.
Thank you. So I put this on the agenda tonight to and the chief's not here, he was here earlier, but to bring to the attention of the council, which I'm sure some of you may already be aware of, and to the police department, which I know we're still trying to actively recruit more officers. We just had 9 new hires to monitor or patrol our streets. That now with the spring and summer here, we're having an influx of these many motorcycles, dirt bikes that come through the city. I cannot speak for the city as a whole, only for the center of the city, which I represent, and stay in for most of the evening. So I get to see the people coming in and out of the city during the day and in the evening on these bikes. Not only do we have an ordinance that speaks to if you don't have a vehicle with a plate or registration or insurance, that is not supposed to be on the street. It's illegal statewide and within the city. But we have these little mini bikes, and I just saw this over the weekend, a group of 6 men on these little mini motorcycles, which look like they're on tricycles because they're so low to the ground. That's a safety issue. In seeing them coming down the street, because people can be coming out of a driveway and not see them, and nasty accidents can happen. And this is why in the ER during the summer, we have a huge influx of motorcycle accidents and really serious traumas that we have to deal with. So my ask for the police department and the residents of the city is to, 1, please don't be out there driving these motorcycles or any ATVs or dirt bikes that are, 1, not registered and have a plate on them. But if they are in the street, then I would appreciate or hope that our police are out there and pulling them over and not just, smiling as they drive by like, oh, that's a cool, group of kids or gentlemen that are going through the city. They're probably on the way out or just passing through. But there's actually action that takes place, because until there are consequences for their actions and disobedience, then they're going to continue to do that. And we know that neighboring cities and towns have a huge problem with this. And I don't want it to then slowly over the course of the next few years become a major problem in our city. It started a couple of years ago, and it just seems that every year it gets more and more and more, because the word is that it's tolerable. So if people think it's tolerable in our city, then they're going to continue to do it. And I want them to think and know that we don't tolerate that in our city, and that our police department is ready to take action and seize the vehicles or bikes when they're noticed. The other, well, it's not really on this agenda, so I'm not going to mention it, but enforcement of the ordinances are really important. There have been other residents who have reached out regarding other traffic violation ordinances that they feel are not being attended to, that should be handled. And they don't want to be a whistleblower, because if I'm constantly calling on my neighbor's going to know it's me, because who else is calling? And then it causes community conflict or neighborhood tension. And we certainly don't want people to feel like, 1, they can't report something because there's going to be retribution, but then not feel safe or comfortable in their own space either. So my ask again is to report or to be monitoring the roads and streets to make sure that our citizens or those that are visiting the city are doing it within the city's ordinances that we've passed. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Mr. President, I just quickly add that I agree with a lot of that sentiment, and I have some comments to make about the dirt bikes, but to save time, I'm going to make them with the resolution that I'm supporting on some similar problems. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay. Next item, please.
Next item is an ordinance for first and final passage. Ordinance of the City Council of the City of East Providence appropriating $475,000 for improvements to the Riverside Recreation Field. Summary is the purpose of this ordinance is to allocate $475,000 of the remaining unencumbered and unallocated capital budget for improvements to the Riverside Recreation Field. The sponsor is Council Vice President Rodrick.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk. So along those lines, I've been working for a couple of years pretty closely with rehabilitation of the Riverside recreational complex. I will, Dan, in a little bit, can maybe answer a couple questions for us, but it is a big recreational complex that, like a lot in the city, it's gotten tired through the years, needs some rehab. And to try to shorten my remarks, I'll indicate that I've talked with some of the recreation youth group leaders in the area about that. Mr. Winter with the junior townies, Mr. Helene with Little League, with other members of the junior townies organizations, with neighbors in the area that I've canvassed and discussed. And the complex gets a lot of use. We know I've talked ad nauseum about the parking problem, so I won't repeat myself with that. There needs to be a better delineation of the youth and adult groups that are using the complex. There's football, there's soccer, there's junior townies, there's cheerleaders, there are baseball is there. And there is a small kids playground, and there are kids on the dirt bikes that are all over that place, ruining it. And they have quick access to go hide behind wooded areas, and you just can't snatch them. I was tempted a few times when they ride by, but and I know the police sometimes give chase when they can, but my point is there are a lot of questions at that complex. Dan, Director Borges, if he could come forward, please, if that's okay with Council President. While I'm in total support of this, and I'll talk about a little more of the specifics in the ordinance, but my concern is that, again, I bring up timetable, and how are you confident that this is something we can get to? For instance, during the baseball season, there was a big area prepared behind the third base side. The dugout was dug out, and dug out behind the dugout, and I guess I'm being told it might be a batting cage or something, which the youth groups are excited about having there. They've never had one in that area, and it kind of seems like it's stalled, and so when it rains, it's all mud, you can't get in and out of the dugout, little thing in the scope of world problems. But so I'm just concerned that I think staffing is an issue. I know the problems, but I wanted to discuss it publicly. Is this something that can reasonably be done? And can you describe for the public a little bit about the project?
Sure. Yeah, I sent over a figure, so you should have that as one of your attachments. I'll share with the council the figure that will be up on the screen here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so to address your concern with regards to the work that was started by city staff for the batting cage, we certainly are, we do have staffing issues right now. We're short-staffed, and it seems harder and harder to get new staff nowadays. So we're certainly working to, obviously now this is prime grass cutting season. So things are obviously a little slower to getting finished. A lot of the plan you see here the work will be done by contractors. So we'll either bid the work or use existing bids that we have in the city to complete the work on a low bid basis. So the plan you see before you is to improve, let me get my list here. So I give you the figure and then a little breakdown there. So currently we have 19 existing parking spaces on Somerset Ave, the small parking lot adjacent to the playground. We intend to increase that lot to 45 spaces. And then in addition to the parking lot adjacent to this piece of property, that'll be an additional roughly 100 space. I think it's 99. So we'll be adding an additional 125 spaces for this complex. On top of that, we'll be providing better access to the park from the parking lot. So I'll have ADA compliant walking paths, and we intend on connecting those to the back of the dugouts and the backstop there. What's we got here?
So be some handicap parking, I assume. or-
Yep, so we've designated 2 at this time. I mean, this is still open for
Yep.
interpretation. I mean, if we move some of the paths, we'll relocate some of the handicap, but absolutely, there'll be a handicap parking
Sure.
based on all requirements. Yep.
Can you pause there for 1 second?
Sure.
Because I think this really highlights it, right? So Somerset, right here, right? So let's say you have junior townies going on and you have baseball practice game, whatever it is. This road is completely choked with cars on both sides. Not only is this road choked out and almost impassable, these 2 roads here, Kingsford and Arrowhead, have cars all up and down them. They're parking on people's grass because there's no curbs, right? When you get the junior townies there, I see the light up there, which is great news because the junior townies come in there with generators and run lights, which are loud and they stink, which is, I'm sure a joy to the people on Meadowcrest, right?
It's
And you
where my
can't
house
even
is.
see, right? So you can't look down from Willett Avenue down here and see that this is choked out until you get on it. And
Yep.
over here, we got those 2 big like chimney monuments. So people wind up coming in here and then backing out and everything else. It's a
Yep.
disaster. Plus people park over here right in front of people's houses.
Right.
So it's a complete nightmare.
Yeah, and I should actually
It
go
is.
back. I did identify 125 new spaces. It's actually 125 plus the additional spaces. I unfortunately don't have a count on those. but
And Councilman brings up a good point. People may say parking, you're frivolous. Why are you using up space for parking and putting down macadam or whatever we're gonna put down top? Parking is important. As Councilman just pointed out, I won't repeat what he said. Look at some of the other fields, Pierce Stadium, all the good things that go on there. They have some pretty sufficient parking. It works. Graduation the other night, 5,000 to 6,000 people at Pierce Field and cars parking on the streets. That's an oddity, but the parking lot helped. Go to Kent Field. Beautiful complex, which we're about to improve, but there's a good sized parking. Cars are not on Clyde Avenue. They're not on all the side streets. Go to Kim Rock Field. Go to most of these facilities. Parking is an important part of it. So parking is important to this project, in my opinion.
Mr. Borges, what's the 2 green box represent?
So the 2 green boxes are just a footprint for a standard size football field. We added those in just so that the council could have a little perspective as to where we would be ideally locating some of the field lighting. We've salvaged 4 existing poles that came from a different park that were removed. We've got approval from Musco Lighting, which is the lighting company that fabricated those posts. They can be reused. So ideally, what we're going to do is save some cost, repurpose the poles, and just put new LED lighting.
So
field
that will be
lighting.
fenced off?
So,
To
yeah.
separate
So-
the
so on-
baseball field from the,
Yeah, so a
field.
big issue is off-road vehicles over there. They absolutely tear up those fields and parks. We
Mhm.
can't keep up with that. So ideally, a perimeter fence, as you see in red, with either lockable gates that's still sort of in the works from a design standpoint, but either lockable gates or some sort of switchback that sort of deters and really doesn't allow these vehicles to fit.
I'm referring to the bottom portion, the baseball field and the box, the green box. The green box
Yep.
you're saying represents or could represent a football
Football
field.
fields
Would there be some type of divider that, or
between
that's
between the 2 football
between the-
fields.
between, no, the baseball field and the football field. And the reason why I asked that is because part of the problem we had at Glen Lyon was we had an open field. And those fly balls to anywhere outfield where the soccer game was going on, you had a tendency of,
Yeah, typically we
running
don't
into one
have that
another.
there. I mean, Councilman, you may be able to speak to this, but the practices for the junior townies are typically not scheduled at the same time as a baseball game's going on.
okay,
So that
Right.
won't be an issue.
right.
We located the two light poles outside of sort of the playable area of the
Right.
baseball field.
Right.
So it'll all work in
I
conjunction.
think it will work because if there is a fence, it limits what you can do there. It might shorten the football side too much. It might make baseball not the dimensions that are required by the league. So the fencing, making them their own dedicated fields won't work. It's got to be kind of an all-purpose.
Yeah, and we looked into the option of putting in like a radius fence in the outfield area. But then we thought, we're putting this radius fence in, you're sort of taking up space where either cheerleading could go on, or you could simulate like paint out like a 30-yard, end zone there. So we decided it would be best to sort of keep the outfield fencing.
And I'm just expressing concern only
Sure.
because the issue and problems they had early on at Glen Lyon.
Right.
Where you have an open field, baseball field, soccer.
Yeah.
Every time a ball was hit, players running for the ball, and guy playing soccer at the same time, they have a tendency of running into one another. That had happened over at Glen Lyon. And that's the reason why that fence is there now. Because of that issue and problem they had with
Yeah.
soccer players and I just wanted to raise that more than
Sure.
anything else, and I wasn't sure whether or not that was a fence, but go ahead, please proceed.
I have a question. So everything in red is a fenced border, so going around that parking lot is a fence.
Yes.
Correct?
So our approach here was to sort of keep the playground area, the basketball area separate, so that if people go to the playground, they can enjoy that space but also still have access to the larger field. The intent of the perimeter fence is to deter the vehicles that go through there while kids are practicing
Sure.
football.
How high, especially around that baseball field and behind, the dugout, is that fence? Because I've been to many a games there and that ball goes right into the parking lot and whacks the cars that are parking
It's
there.
constant. That
Yeah.
poor family that lives
Yeah.
right there.
So I'm just wondering if in the improvements, are we taking into account of shielding so that now that we have a nice parking lot that's going to be repaved, people aren't going to have subsequent more damage?
Sure. Yeah, we can certainly, again, these are obviously budgetary
Right.
numbers, but that's a great point. The existing fencing will all be replaced.
Mhm.
The backstops over there are in really bad shape. So we can certainly look to increase the height of the dugouts and maybe carry that a little further and then drop down to say a 6, maybe carry an 8-10 foot fence and then drop down to a 6 as we
Yeah.
connect to the fencing along the
the perimeter.
property owners.
Mhm.
Probably be more conducive to use a net as opposed to a
Or
higher
or a
fence.
netting system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, that's being done. If you look at the Country Day field on
Sure.
Pawtucket Avenue, they
Yep.
have a big net.
New high school, the high school has it.
Yeah.
Glen Lyon has it for the residential, separating the
We can- yeah.
residential for the park, sure.
We can certainly look
Just a
into that.
thought, because I know
Okay.
that that's a big issue.
Anyway,
Yeah, so that sort of covers the perimeter fencing. We also intend on resurfacing the basketball court and repainting that. That court is in really bad shape. I mean, there's cracking. It's pretty much virtually unplayable right now. And we'll replace the backboards and the nets when we do that, keeping the existing poles since they're in good condition. And then we will, I've already mentioned it once, but I'm actually working with Rise Engineering currently, who's doing our streetlight replacement. They're working on getting us the existing utility poles with current field lighting on it. We're gonna have that replaced as part of incentive that National Grid, or now Rhode Island Energy, has offered. So those will get replaced hopefully in the near future. And that will go towards the city's on-bill reimbursement. So we'll be able to get those lights put in and pay a small fraction at 0% for extended period of time. So they'll have brand new field lighting hopefully in the next few months. If supply chain doesn't mess that up too.
So if approved tonight, we go out to bid pretty soon, or
Yeah, the intent would probably be to go out to bid separately. The parking lot and the basketball court can happen fairly quickly. We have Pawtucket Hot Mix on, we have a low bid with them for asphalt, so that work can happen hopefully soon. They would probably do the basketball court and the parking lot at the same time. And then the way I see this sort of working out is that we would go out to bid for the fencing for not only this project, but Kent Heights and a few other projects that we have in the mix all at the same time to try to get the best bang for our buck. And then the field lighting would be sort of a separate bid as well. And that would include, I think I went over this a little bit, but 4 new, we're reusing existing poles that we have at DPW that we saved. We just need to purchase bases for those concrete precast bases, and obviously run electrical and whatnot. So we'll go out to bid for that portion. Then one item that wasn't mentioned is this facility is currently not, does not have irrigation. So we would like to, or it has irrigation, but it needs a lot of work. What we're intending on doing is actually drilling wells, save the city money, and use the groundwater to water this field. So that's part of the upgrades here. That's part of what we're looking to do.
Good
So that
idea.
would be a separate project. We have some funding and capital for irrigation at Pierce Field. So again, that one would sort of be lumped together, try to get the best price, bid price for multiple projects throughout the city. So,
That batting cage that we referred to, will that be ready for next season? I mean, baseball's pretty much done now, but
yeah, I would hope so. Absolutely. I don't see that being an issue.
Mr. Board, just have a few questions. This map does not include the new parking lot and the additional fields, correct?
It does not, no.
Okay.
Nope.
And this parking lot that's in the lower right-hand corner, that's a rendering of the expanded.
Correct.
parking
Yeah,
space.
you know, I wish I had actually brought the what it looks like now, but currently it essentially, if you connect the hatched area on the top right of the proposed parking lot to basically maybe two parking spaces up on the left-hand side, it sort of comes in at an angle if you.
When was this this idea implemented to expand this parking lot? Because it's the first I'm hearing of it.
Recently, and that's why we're bringing it to.
So Councilman Rodrick's last meeting, I voted against that resolution.
the other one, yeah.
Correct. And the reason why I did that, because I felt that there was no discussion whatsoever. I felt that the plan that was proposed was a plan that didn't have any public input or council input. As you know, in 10 years ago, the East Province Junior County submitted a plan that was designed by, and I have it right here, by a company, which was Duarte Corporation, and they engineered the parking for the current fields, 80 to 100 parking spots. Am I correct? The parking lot that was approved by previous councils was approved
correct.
to hold the current.
The one behind the school?
It was designed and approved. It was designed to hold the current fields. And my argument was that we're going to cut that in half and add additional fields. And that's why I was against approving that without proper discussion. And also proper discussion on the design plan to include the council and, public input. So from that point to this point, the point I'm trying to get at is that there was additional, someone must have heard the arguments and the public sentiment, and there's been an additional 20 to 25 parking spots that have been recently found in the existing parking lot, which is going to be expanded. That's what we're talking about tonight, correct?
Well, some of what you're saying is correct. I mean, as far as no discussion on the other, we had extensive discussions at our last budget hearings. When we had those 8 or 9 budget sessions, we unanimously voted to do that parking lot. We cut it
But the point is I'm trying to get at, there was never discussions on designs. There was never discussions as to what I just.
Well, it was with the prior
We just
council,
talked about, but not on this council, the council that's currently.
well, it was already voted on.
Correct. For the parking lot to be the size that it was before.
And we cut
Not
it
the-
down.
Correct.
Okay,
We never had that discussion is what I'm trying to tell you.
well, I had.
So anyways, moving forward, moving on, I should say. I did speak to members of the junior townies and as you know, and you have also heard numerous complaints from the residents around Somerset and those, finger streets going to and from the complex. And as I have always mentioned, will always maintain I'll be that voice. And despite my opposition, I have to vote in favor of this resolution based on my conversations with those residents. But I still wanted to voice my disdain for the process as to how this got here. I don't believe it was a right process, but that's where I stand on that.
My process with this and everything else, whether it's sewers or pipes, is let's get this stuff done. We've been waiting years and years and years, things to deteriorate. We all know, I've been involved with this field for couple decades. When I talked to Director Borges and people involved, like you said, you talked to, this was discussion, and the director came back and said, well, look, we can even add more parking if we make some changes. It's a good idea. And we're bringing it forward tonight. I mean, I'm ready.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the intent. The city did meet with the junior townies.
Yeah.
The lighting was something that has been in discussion for a few years in my short time with the city. And as we started talking through it, the idea of adding the fencing came in, and then we said, you know what? I mean, there's some open space behind the existing parking lot. Why not expand that and try to capitalize on as much parking as we can, especially at a facility that has significant traffic issues.
So Dan, just to recap, how many additional parking spaces are we adding to this?
If you're including the additional parking lot adjacent to this property, it'll be 125 plus the additional spots between
No,
Kingsford.
just this
This one, we're going from 19 to 45.
And the one that's along the open field, that's set back a little bit from the street,
The,
the one that you
On
drive
the other
into.
side. which one? I'm
This
sorry.
right here, these are parking spots, correct?
Correct. Those are
Yeah.
pretty much in the road, the right of way of the road.
Okay,
So when you park there, I mean, you're backing into.
Right, but they're-
traffic.
because a lot of people sit, and congregate, and so that becomes
Right.
again another traffic issue with it bottleneck,
Yeah.
pedestrians. So those are newer?
Tho-
No, those are the existing
Those are
ones.
existing. I
Right,
mean,
okay.
the city did add a portion of asphalt there a few years ago at this
Right,
point.
they're cut into the field. They're not like on the
I didn't
street.
know that, well, yes, slightly. I didn't know if you were extending that also, if there was
No.
any extension in that
Nope.
area too.
No, there's
Okay.
no, because just to the right of the last parking spot there is where we're putting in a batting cage
Okay.
that the Parks Department is putting in.
And those 19 spaces that are there now are not true spaces. There, some are corner angles.
Yeah,
You pull in between chimney corners, the two, you can't park there. There's not 19 true safe parking spaces there.
no, and their orientation aren't
Yeah, it's a
really,
poor
they're not
orientation.
properly striped. So this
And
would make
the
this really-
fencing and things are, I didn't know about that until you brought that up, and that's good. I'm not here to micromanage. I'm glad you talked with junior townies, and I'm glad you talked with other people there. That's why you're here. So I think it's a timely way to do this.
Yeah, I mean, we're not sitting at DPW making these decisions ourselves.
Right,
We take the
right.
input of the community to make sure that people are happy with what we're putting out and presenting to you. So we've actually, speaking of some improvements here, we've actually already planted several trees in that area. I think we're one short of what's actually shown there. Based on spacing, it didn't work out to add additional tree, but I want to say that we planted 6 to 8 trees over there. So we intend on kind of building out that canopy, putting in some bench areas.
seating, yeah.
And that's kind of in the master plan that
Right,
I'll
sure.
ultimately present to the council at some point for every park in the city with capital improvements as to how we want to approach bench replacement
Right.
fence replacement, all sorts of things
Bleachers.
that we really should be thinking about on a 5, 10, 15-year plan.
Council Vice President, would you be okay? I don't know if it sounds like it's the same, in the same discussion, moving item 5 on page 12 also in conjunction.
The other parking lot, sure, if that's the one I'm thinking of,
C5 and page 12.
Yeah, if we could just, this is a public hearing, so.
it's okay with me.
So if you want to,
That's the as far as, that's fine with me. If everyone else, we can do these, they kind of companion
one's a
each other.
public hearing, the other is.
Oh, one's, okay.
So let's take this one and.
Okay.
and we'll allow the.
As
public
far
to
as
speak.
the nuts and bolts of this one, because I haven't mentioned it yet, and I'm sure if there's other questions, that's okay too, but just for edification for people here, what this resolution states, actually the ordinance, not the resolution, states that the capital budget for the fiscal year ending October 31st, 22 was established in the amount of $2,796,905. So that's been established. What is remaining is $3,168,535. And the purpose tonight of this ordinance would, from that 3,000,001, would allocate $475,000 of that remaining unencumbered funds. And it has not been allocated the capital budget for this project, not counting the other one, which is later on in the agenda, the public hearing. So the process for funding is there. There's unallocated funds available. And it's just, I think finally all the parties have gotten together, the people who use that, anyone here who's frequented that facility knows the use it gets. In fact, that Riverside neighborhood wants to stay there. There was a year when I was active with the junior townies football used to be called Mohawks and Raiders. Riverside were the Raiders. And my position on their board was, well, let's get the kids to play at Pierce Field. You know, instead of the Mohawks in the center of the city get Pierce Field, you guys in Riverside get the rec with all the problems it has. And so they did it for a year, and the next year they voted, they said, no, we want to be in Riverside. We want the rec. It's a neighborhood park. And when you go there now, and we know about the parking problems, we know the police have been called, they get stuck in there trying to direct traffic. There's a tot park too, we didn't talk much about. Basketball, I didn't talk much about. There's a lot there. This is a good, and I'm sorry to belabor it. I know you said you would support it, Councilman, already. So I'm ready to move forward. If there aren't any other questions, I would move approval.
When the Mohawks, when they were the Mohawks and I coach, we used to practice over at Silver Spring, actually. That was another location.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. Any other, this is a public hearing, by the way. So anyone from the public wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach your podium. Again, anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium. If not, public hearing is now closed, and I'll leave it at the discretion of the council.
I would move approval.
Okay, we have a motion for approval by Councilman Rodrick. Would
Second.
anyone like to second that? Seconded by Councilwoman Souza. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon,
Aye.
Councilman Morato,
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick,
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza,
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Did you want to move the other one up?
Oh, well, I think while we're in the moment, might as well move it up because it's a related conversation.
Okay, you want to state which one it is and what page for the public?
C5 on page 12.
What was that? Page 12, right?
Yep.
Number 5.
Resolution to amend resolution number 204, book 27, page 37 three, adopted May 17, 2022. Resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for the construction of a parking lot at Riverside Middle School, sponsored by Councilman Vice President Roberts.
This is what we were just referring to as Councilman Morado brought up a little bit of the history of this, and basically, I'll speak for myself, not others, but when I got on this council, I was getting complaints from the neighborhood and people saying, when is this going to happen? That a prior council has voted for this. The money is put away. What are you waiting for? I've still had the emails. One neighbor sent me 6 complaining, blaming me, blaming us for not doing it. The junior townies, same thing. They sent a letter to the mayor. I have that email, a copy of it, where they were strongly supporting it. So we went through this during the budget discussions. We talked about it. It was, I think we had 4 meetings discussing it. We did knock it down in size. Somebody used the term, it was a Walmart sized parking lot, too big. And then there were fields involved. So I've talked about this before. I'm not going to belabor it. What this comes down to right now, this is just the parking lot, not additional fields. It would go out to bid to add not only parking, but let's see, it talks about completing porous pavement parking lot, wood guardrails, striping, paving of walking paths. And the funding is partially funded through the allocated capital improvement funds approved by the city council in the amount of $306,700. There will be another $105,000 needed, which the recommendation is to come from the ARPA funds. And here again, we're in a situation where every 6 months we wait, prices go up. Every 6 months to a year that we wait, you can't get the laborers, you can't get companies. You sign on, you get them, and you can't show up, or who has COVID and can't come to work. There are all kinds of options that add to delays. So I'm ready to help alleviate the problem with that area. It also works in conjunction with the middle school. It provides some parking in the back of that school for activities, and it's a great recreational area that I think the diagram we saw earlier, accompanied with this additional parking, will be a great spot for that part of Riverside. That's the other. I wrote down a couple of notes. I'm not going to skip that. Oh, I kind of mentioned this earlier, the importance of parking at recreational fields. It's not just enough to plop a field somewhere and then where do you park when people come to? We no longer walk to places. Families drive to all of these games. I mentioned Pierce, I mentioned Kent, I mentioned Crescent Park, I mentioned Hunts Mills. All these nice areas have adequate parking. This area never did. And so I think this is an appropriate project. Thank you. I would move, it's a resolution, it's not public hearing, so I would move passage.
Any discussion from the council? With no discussion from the council, we have a motion by Councilman Roderick, seconded by Councilman Cahoon. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council President Brito.
Aye.
Member Cahoon, page 12, item number 7, would the council have any objection to moving that up? I have a school committee member that would like to speak on that also.
Sure.
I don't.
Not at all. We have some members here. I'd like to get them out as well, if possible, from the department, city departments here.
So which do you want to do first?
We're gonna move right on to number 7.
Number 7. Number 7 is a resolution supporting a request for proposals seeking solutions to provide for the security of our schools. The sponsor is Councilman Cahoon.
I'm going to start just by reading this resolution. It's not long. And then we can have whatever discussion we're going to have. But So this is a resolution supporting a request for proposals seeking solutions to provide for the security of our schools, whereas gun violence has become a cataclysmic, epidemic, and deplorable fact of life in our American schools. And whereas nearly 10 years elapsed between the Sandy Hook murders in 2012 and the Robb Elementary School killings of 2022, showing that measures taken to eliminate school violence during that time have proven ineffective. And whereas incidents such as Sandy Hook and Robb Elementary generate heated, politicized debates with regard to how to solve the problem, paralyzing lawmakers and culminating in a deadly stalemate for our children, educators, school employees, and law enforcement officers. And whereas the protection of our schools is a responsibility shared by the city, school administration, and the community at large, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of East Providence hereby urges the mayor and the city administration to work with the East Providence School Department to produce a request for proposals, commissioning an independent consultant with expertise in policy, school security, and municipal finance to provide the city's decision makers with actionable recommendations to ensure the safety of our most precious asset, our children. So the idea behind this, and I don't think I need to get too into the weeds, I think everybody knows exactly where it came from. When I watched the events of Sandy Hook in December of 2012, right before I headed over to Kent Heights School for a concert by the fifth graders, I was certain that that would be the beginning of the end of mass shootings in schools. And I couldn't have been more wrong. There was finger pointing. There was a lot of talk. There was a lot of the same nonsense really that adults engage in anytime some politicized matter comes up. And kids continued to die. All through those years, kids continued to die and people just continued to lock themselves up over what the right thing was to do about it. I think that any number of us has our own opinions. Personally, I've got mine, but I'm not going to share them. I think it's time to get real experts engaged at a municipal level to tell us what we need to do to protect our schools until and unless the problem at a national level is properly and maturely addressed. And we take actions as grown-ups to make sure that the kids that we force to go to these buildings every day do not have to learn songs and routines to hide from killers while they're trying to learn math and color and enjoy recess, etc. This is maybe the biggest absurdity of American history, and we've had quite a few, but the fact that we cannot get together and come up with solutions that will protect our kids is beyond outrageous. So let's get somebody in here who knows school security, who knows national, federal, state law, who understands our budget, understands our policies, and can make meaningful recommendations about what we can do at the local level to keep our kids safe. That's what this is about.
Any questions from the council?
So I am in full support. Anything we can do, to keep one child safe. I don't care what amount of money it will take to do that. And I thank you for putting this forward and bringing this to light and let's have a conversation on it. What I am going to ask tonight is that with 7 days, I believe, left in the school year, what I would ask is that we first have a discussion, one with the school committee, bringing all the stakeholders to the table, some of these items might have to be done in executive session. We don't want to let out, response tactics and secrets as to how, police respond and stuff. But some of the questions I would have before we went to a consultant company is getting questions from our own police department, which I personally believe that they are the experts, right? For a department like mine, we have a critical response policy in place, a 13-page response from how to respond all the way to the de-escalation and all the way to accountability and an area where everyone would gather and how we treat those people. It's a well thought out plan. I would like to know if the police department and have them weigh on it. They have a policy already in place. What are their thoughts? We also have, we know that our security director for the schools will be leaving shortly at the end of the month. And we will also be getting a new superintendent. Let's get the new people involved in that conversation. We also know that Title 16 state statute that RIDE provides assessments, security assessments. They review policy, they give recommendations. It may not be necessarily that we need to go to an outside consultant. I don't know what that answer would be at this point. But what I am asking is that, I don't see any harm in having a meeting where we invite public, we invite these stakeholders, and maybe guide some questions as to if we want to move in that direction of a consultant company, at least have a guide or give them guidance as to what we're looking for. Maybe they can fill in the blanks. School shootings, I hate to say it, but it seems like it's going to be a fact of life. It's sad that it's becoming that way. It's so frequent. What happened with Robb Elementary, the active shooter situation started with Columbine. Prior to Columbine, it was, we wait for backup. As law enforcement, you wait for backup. Since Columbine, all departments that I know of trained that you do not wait for backup. You go into that school and you stop the threat, even if it means taking your own life, if them taking your life, to save a child. Mm-hmm. What happened to Robb Elementary, it seems like they went backwards in time to prior to Columbine. I can't critique that, but it just seems to be what they were doing there, waiting for backup, taking cover, barricade situation. That was, to me personally as a cop, and we train annually in active shooter situations. That's not how we trained. That's not how we train. I would also like to see perhaps a security assessment. We're doing that to our department. We have numerous calls throughout the year of Facebook postings, social media postings that they're going to do this, they're going to do that. And we respond as if each one of those threats are real. Do all police officers have access to every door in every school? To me, that's one key important factor in a security assessment. Every cop needs to have access, be able to gain access through every door, not just the front entry. So these are the questions like I would like to have a real meaningful discussion. Bring it, like I said, bring everyone to the table. Let's put a list of what we have currently, what we don't have, what we can improve, and what we can get. Maybe it can be equipment issues for police department. We have ballistic vests. I'm sure they have it too. We have rifles, for these situations. So what I'm asking tonight is that if we can just table this for at least a special meeting or until the next meeting. I would prefer a special meeting just on this topic. I believe that this is important enough to have that. And I feel it's going to be a lengthy one.
So to address everything that you just said, certainly I do not have any opinions on the law enforcement response. I have no idea, what they were directed, what they weren't directed. Reading through their manuals is all I can get as a layperson and what they're supposed to do. I mean, I think it seems obvious to me what you're supposed to do in that case, but again, I'm not a law enforcement officer. The process that you just described, Mr. Murato, is basically exactly what I do for a living all day long. We decide there's a need for a contract, and then you sit with the stakeholders and you determine what the requirements are that are going to go into the RFP. We want you, consultant, to look at some of the things that you've just listed. We want you to look at our physical security. We want you to look at our local ordinances and policies with regard to, gun ownership and may issue versus shall issue, all of that stuff. Bring it all to SROs, whatever it might be. Look at all of it and come back to us and say, that's a recommendation that can help you as a city That isn't. Don't even bark up that tree because it's a waste of money and it's not going to protect. So I am fully on board with the idea of getting the requirements together. I am not fully on board with the idea of halting this resolution because I want the administration to immediately start thinking about what it would cost for an independent consultant and to start doing that work on cost estimates so that we can sit down and start putting, just like you said, the parameters around the requirements. Because one thing I don't agree with is that we have to look at this as a fact of life thing. It's really the only country in the world where it's fact of life. I mean, there are isolated incidents here and there, but Norway, England, Ireland, Iceland, you name them, they're not dealing with this type of issue. Australia, Japan, right? There are isolated incidents. I don't know how many mass shootings we've already had this year, and the number that's in school is particularly egregious. So I don't want to hit the brakes at all. I'd like to hit the gas. And I'm for everything that you just said, though. I think it needs to be well thought out with all the applicable stakeholders in a room, laying out the requirements for as long as that takes, and then getting it out into industry and saying, all right, whoever's out there, whether it's, this particular research think tank or, these particular experts in school, whether it's a prime and subs coming to us and making a proposal for, this is how we're going to approach it. Let's get a request for proposals out, determine how we want to evaluate it, and get them in place and get them going.
Well, I will be voting in the affirmative, but what I'm asking is that we, as I mentioned, we do have a, discussion and work through what is needed. And we can get ideas from the average citizen, parents. Maybe they see something that law enforcement does not see. Anything but help. And that's what I'm trying to propose, is that we have some type of discussion. And I would urge that we have a special meeting for this topic and this topic alone to work through those items and have that discussion.
I'm not going to stand in the way of a special meeting, and I'm certainly not going to stand in the way of a joint meeting with the school committee if that's what we think is the right, this is absurd. This is beyond absurd.
So I can't agree with both of you as much at this point in time. I mean, you both make very valid points. And of course, it's something we really need to think about. Let's get the experts in here. Let's move forward with this, special meetings, whatever it takes, whatever we got to do. Well, let's do it.
And if I can add, we have experts in Rhode Island. I'm not sure, how much money we have to pay. Didn't the state just, or the feds just announced there's money available for this?
So it's kind of nebulous, and I've been reading a lot about it. And actually, the mayor sent something to me that I guess the governor has identified a certain pot of funds to do something very similar like this on a statewide basis, or at least to make funds available for municipalities to do this.
I believe it's 500,000 over a 2-year period. That might be available.
Yeah. And whether that's enough or not depends on how we identify the scope.
But let's not forget Title 16, that the RIDE also has a safety committee that can be utilized also as an additional.
And let's not forget.
I'm well familiar with it, and I'm well familiar with Title 16, and I'm well familiar with the resulting conditions of our school after years of Title 16. We got to get moving.
And let's not forget that there have been some good strides made. I'll try to be a minute or less here, but for 30 years when I worked for the school department, this was my responsibility along with others. And when Columbine happened, we had countless meetings. Our plan, which I think is still in place, is to create an incident command center so that when something happens, you immediately make the decision, is it police, fire, medical, and wherever the determination is, if it's a shooting, it's police. So the incident commander on site, the police officer, is in charge. School people back off. That's
part of the critical response.
That's right, the critical response. And the other thing that we need, obviously it has to be updated, but we went through all the schools and what we found is the physical problems. We had a high school with 27 exterior doors. Impossible to put 27 metal detectors out, 27 police officers at doors. You know, you don't have a metal detector without a person to monitor it. So that could never get fixed. We did get doors locked. Classroom doors are supposed to be locked, unlike, was it Rob's school? So there's a lot of things that were done, a lot of things that can be done. Martin and Riverside didn't have vestibules. You could just walk in. Now you can't get into those schools without going in that front area and get buzzed in. But if you come in with a gun, you know, you can get in. So good point. Let's get all the people together again and come up with this plan. The key people here are our school administrators, superintendent, principals, and others. Yeah, school committee, council people are important, but let's get to the day-to-day people and the parents and whatever it takes. Joint meeting, fine. And of course, the police and they train for this. I was sadly with Captain, he wasn't captain then, McGregor, the day he was tragically shot. And that was a training for school violence. It was about a school bus takeover and hostages. And I think we all know how that turned out very badly with a tragic accident. So there've been a lot of things going on in the city, and knock on wood, you know, let's continue to do it. And I'll be at any meeting at any time
So
with
that-
any people.
Yeah, just your minutes up, Councilman. I was keeping track.
Well,
I'm
I
just
was
kidding.
gonna ask for 30 seconds.
So just one thing that I wanted to add or mention is the council does have reduced council meetings over the summer. So maybe next month or in August, we can set up a community workshop where we can have people present and kind of talk through some of this, have people, I'm sure we have people in our community who will have expertise in some of this area that would be helpful. And then to keep in mind, we just approved to put on a ballot to create a new middle school. So having those security things already thought out and vetted and into place, so that way when we build that school, we can already be implementing those things in that new middle school that's going to be built in the next,
And
8 years.
You're 100% right. And when we started, we started with the design process of the new high school. You know, a lot of the things that we thought about weren't things that you thought about in 1950, right? You know, there weren't the corners, there were the long hallways in the old school, right? There's tons of glass, so there's tons of visibility, not to mention the 8 gazillion cameras that are in that building now that obviously weren't in the old building, right? So those thoughts just weren't there because it wasn't happening. Now, obviously that will flow into both the Martin and to a small degree, the Waddington projects, but it leaves all of our elementary schools in kind of the same place, right? We're not getting new elementary schools. There's not unlimited resources. So we've got to figure out how to put fences around them best we can in a literate, in a figurative sense.
So we're all in agreement of this
Yeah.
essentially.
I think
So with that, I move to approve
Yes.
the resolution seeking to request a solution via RFP with all stakeholders involved, as read earlier by the councilman.
Second.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon,
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick,
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza,
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. We have an employee here, Ms. Jones here. Can we jump on resolutions 4 and 6 so we can get her out? This meeting's seems to be dragging on a little longer than anticipated. Is that okay with the council?
Sure, no objection.
Okay. And then we have the police department here is, excuse me,
We
the
have the
fire
tree
department
commission
here as
waiting
well.
for the native
Tree commit,
ordinance.
and let's get them all up as well then.
It's all the bouncing
So,
around.
yes. All right, so this is if you want to,
Resolution number 4 is the resolution requesting the General Assembly to enact Bill H 7616 relating to the Department of Healthy Aging. The sponsor is Council President Brito.
thank you. Ms. Jones, you want to take the lead on this, please?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I've been working with my fellow Rhode Island Association of Senior Center Directors to do advocacy on this bill that is co-sponsored by Rep. Carson and Rep. Ruggiero. And the bill would move what we used to call the Department of Elderly Affairs got changed, and then it now is has been downgraded over the last few years into a office. So it would really, with a quarter of our population, senior citizens, and that number growing, we really need a department that has the teeth that can put the services and supports in place. I think it was really telling during the pandemic that the senior centers really didn't get the support they needed for the work that we had to do from the office. There was a lot of information that came out around putting a plan together. Really, there was nothing that was put out that had any detail to it for senior centers. And we know that the pandemic hit that population the heaviest. So a lot of the staffing for the office has been reduced. It's now under the office or the Department of Human Services, and just it really needs to go back to being a department so that they have their own budget. They have a staff that can really support the growing senior population. And what's good for seniors is really good for everybody. I don't know if you have any questions about the bill or the resolution.
So the bill itself, we all received a copy of that, was attached to our file. And the bill it refers to is H7616 relating to the Department of Healthy Aging.
Correct.
And it just goes on and talks about the elderly population is increasing, and the Rhode Island Senior Center Director Association has collaborated with the legislation introducing this bill, which would, among other critical needs, elevate the Office of Healthy Aging to the State Department, increasing staffing to members of growth needs of seniors, and give local municipalities, senior centers a seat at the table when it comes time to providing programs, instituting policies, and ensuring access to resources for the city's elderly population. And that's pretty much in a nutshell. So again, it is a resolution in support of the House bill that will be sent up to the general legislation. Any questions? No questions?
I have none. One level up in the bureaucracy makes sense, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And since they put a EOHHS in and everything else, I mean, that's just another level that you have to get through.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. President, if there are no questions, I move to approve the resolution.
Okay.
I'll second.
Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. And while you're up here, if we could just move right on to the next resolution very quickly. And the resolution states allowing, excuse me. This
Number-
one, is it you? No,
6.
6.
6 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for landscape construction services for improvements to the East Providence Senior Center grounds. The sponsor is Council Vice President Rodrick.
Councilwoman Souza has taken my time down, so I would defer to the director. I was asked to sponsor it, obviously support this, but if you are better suited to describe it.
Sure. So it would be in, it's really hard to describe it because it's the front of the building, which is actually the back of the building, if that makes sense, when you come into the building. So it would be not in the main entrance where you come in through the double doors.
Where the
but-
trees are in the Christmas time.
Exactly.
Right.
So it would be that part of the property that the landscaping would take place on. Currently, we have a walking path that is used by the seniors every day for exercise. And the path is very worn. There's lots of bumps and cracks, and it really needs to be replaced. I'm very fearful that somebody's going to fall and get hurt. So, and then also, I think it would be, there's a lot of noise with the traffic, so the plantings would allow a buffer to create more of a park-like setting. And then there's in the plan, there's an addition of a pickleball court, which is very popular amongst senior in cities around the nation right now.
And there'll be some seating.
Yep, there'll be some seating around there and some benches to create more of a park-like setting that that space would be used by, anybody in the city. It wouldn't be just used by seniors after hours.
Did we see a plan for that already? I
Yes.
vaguely remember. Okay,
And there was a public hearing.
right. And nothing's changed from that
No,
original plan. I know, a few years back, I had asked, and it was not completed, but that there would be a fence or, a gate, made on Pawtucket Avenue near the bus stop, because what we were having was issues with senior citizens taking them from high rises, the bus, and then having to walk all the way around.
yeah.
So there was a cutout that
Yes.
was created, but I don't think that there's any official gate there for security reasons, which I think would be beneficial to
Yeah.
probably have something there. And I don't think that they really created a path. So I can't recall if in that plan that there was a path that went to that cutout so that you could get access from Pawtucket Ave where the bus stop is.
I can't remember myself if there
Okay.
was. I know we talked about access that way, but I thought it was for a vehicle to get through there, but is there access? Okay, yes. Okay.
Yeah, there's an opening. They're gonna create the walking path. Yeah, perfect. Okay, because that was something that was important.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So I think, it'll be a great project.
No, it's gonna be great and hopefully sooner than later. Depending on, so with that,
So the particulars, I won't read the whole thing. It is, there is a low bid provided by Johnson Landscaping. I won't repeat what it includes, all of the things we just talked about, that the director talked about. Community Development Block Grant, COVID funds in the amount of 180,000. Opera funds in the amount of 138,270. So the total cost is $318,270, and it is the low bidder. So I'd second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon,
Aye.
Councilman Morato,
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Councilwoman, you have an ordinance.
tree
resolution on here?
yeah, unless, again, Council President, Vice President Rodrick, he has one right before me, but unless.
No, that's
if
okay.
It's
Go
gonna be
ahead.
Will.
Go right ahead.
All right. So yes, if we could move up the final passage, second and final passage for public hearing for the native tree ordinance.
So the second passage is an ordinance and amendment of chapter 14 of the revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Streets and Sidewalks. The summary is to establish minimum standards for the use of native plants on city property and to promote plant species diversity. The sponsor is Councilwoman Souza.
Thank you. So again, we had the tree commission come up and public speaker come up and discuss what this is. It's pretty straightforward. It's a win-win for the city. And hopefully this is just the start to build and create additional policies and plans to move us in the right direction to improve our ecosystem, our tree canopy, and our heat index. So.
At the pleasure of the council, this is a public hearing. I would wish anybody
you don't have-
want to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the the podium. If not, public comment is now closed. Again, at the pleasure of the council, anyone have any questions or concerns regarding the second passage? If not, Councilwoman?
I move to approve passage, second and final passage as read.
Second.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye,
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you.
thank you.
Adjournment.
We're gonna do second passage. An ordinance, an amendment of chapter 8 of the revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Licenses and Business Regulations. The summary is tracking, acquisition, enforcement, and penalties for persons licensed for metal transactions. The sponsor is Council Vice President Rodrick.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm not going to comment on it. We've talked at length about, this is just an attempt to answer constituents' concerns about the amount of catalytic converters being stolen and sold on the street. And we've talked about how this will help. It's not a be all end all, but ready to go along with this. Providence, some other cities have something very similar to this. Make it a little bit harder. It won't solve it totally, but you can't just go knocking on the door selling a catalytic converter that you just cut out of somebody's truck or car.
Councilman Rodrick, I found this ordinance to be exhausting. I'm sorry, it's getting late. I thought it was a good joke.
Yeah, it's late because I didn't get it at first.
This is second passage, therefore it is a public hearing. This passed unanimously, the first passage. However, if anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium. If not, public comment, public hearing is now closed. At the pleasure of the council. Any questions, concerns? If
Move
not,
approval.
make approval. We have a motion for approval at this time by the councilman. Anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second. I'm
We
still
have a
laughing at the stupid joke.
We have a second. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Do you want me to wait for Councilwoman Souza?
Chicken, yeah.
Okay, and Council President Brito.
Aye.
No, just, oh, there she is. Councilwoman Souza. Thank
Okay.
you.
Next item, please.
Next item, new business, mayor communications. Appointment requiring council confirmation, Gregory E. Miller to planning board. Citywide seat term is January 16th, 2022 to January 15th, 2027.
Good evening, it's still evening, right?
Yes, it is.
So Mr. Miller is the East Providence resident, editor of the Build Up Incorporated. He is replacing Burton Byron seat. If I got the name right.
Patty.
Burton Batty, I'm sorry, Burton Batty. My apologies. His appointment's for 5 years, starts from 1/16/2022 to 1/15/2027. Any questions?
No question.
No question.
Move approval. That's a council approval on that one?
Mhm.
Yeah, move approval.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Next item.
Do you want me to read it or would you like to read it?
So the next item is appointment not requiring council confirmation, reappointment of Daniel Correa to the East Providence Affirmative Action Committee, C8. This is a 2-year term. Term is 5/2/2022 to 5/1/2024. Daniel's a longtime member of the committee, worked in Boston as a federal contractor, also member of the EP Economic Development Committee. And the next reappointment is of Tisha Neves Sunat Hazi to the East Providence Affirmative Action Committee, C4. This is a 2-year term. Term is from 5/2/2022 to 5/1/2024. Tisha's a fairly new to the committee. Small business owner, East Providence, Peace of Mind Nannies is the business.
Thank you, sir.
When we're on to the items for discussion, I'll turn it over to the Finance Director, Malcolm Moore.
Does anyone have any questions for Malcolm? I don't. I generally email them to you when I have questions. I don't. I just, want to save the time if we can. Malcolm, did you have anything in particular you wanted to point out to us? Okay.
Anything we need to know? No? Okay, proceed.
Next up is the Rumford Range remediation, the Rhode Island Armor National Guard cleanup project update. Director will update you on it.
What is a Zoom meeting on that tomorrow evening, right?
There is, that's sort of the main objective of this. I mean, I don't know how much in depth you want me to get in on this, but remediation of the Rumford Rifle Range, it's been there, was active 1896 to 1946. Ammunition was shot there. There's a lot of contaminated lead in the soil. 19 locations, 7.2 acres of area that's going to be disturbed. About 19,000 cubic feet of material is going to be removed and replaced. Trees will have to be removed on this site, but they have an extensive planting plan that will put back approximately 335 trees and 35 bushes.
So it's an important meeting for those who are interested in that particular area, especially remediation.
I have handouts of the mapping, just to show that the blue area are the areas that are going to be excavated.
That's city-owned property, right?
It is. Yep.
Is it?
It's water department property. Yep.
And that property is right off of Kimberly Rockfield.
Yep. It's
In the
just
back.
behind Kimberly Rockfield,
Yeah.
adjacent to the 10 Mile River Bike Path,
Mhm.
right behind the IGUS and Interplex facilities.
But although that is city-owned property, this is not a city-driven initiative. This
This-
is a federally driven initiative.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
We do not have a say here. That must be remediated, period, end of story.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So when people start asking why trees are getting cut down, it's not because the city council wanted to cut down a bunch of trees. It's because we need to remediate the property.
Thank you. That was one of my points, and I'm trying to rush and didn't get to that. So yes.
Okay.
But you did mention that they're planting 300.
335 new trees. I can provide you a
Yeah.
planting plan another time if you'd like it.
You want to just,
This small 7.2 acre portion that's being impacted is out of 183 acres, total acres. The 170 some odd acres were deemed no need to touch. They were, so.
and again, this meeting's tomorrow evening, Zoom meeting at 7
So the
p.m.
community meeting tomorrow, June 8th, 7 PM, right on the city website, eastprovinceri.gov. Scroll to the bottom. It's right in the
Very
recent
good.
news portion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
East Providence Community Center update.
Short and sweet. So we're gonna have a community meeting update on June 14th, 2022, 7 PM, right here in the city council chambers.
The Rhode Island severe storm, winter storm, and snowstorm.
Mm.
You're gonna be here till the next snowstorm at this rate.
That's a bad word.
I think we still do better than school committee.
Hi, I'm Wayne Barnes. I work for East Province Emergency Management.
Welcome back.
Yeah,
I thought you retired.
I thought I did too. Yeah, yeah. The blizzard of January 29, 2022 has received a FEMA declaration, a disaster declaration. This is much like when you see when there's a tornado somewhere and they have a disaster declaration. This is the same idea. And what it does is it enables government and private nonprofit agencies to apply for reimbursement of certain eligible expenses that are directly related to the storm. For us, that's mostly snow removal costs, including the overtime for all of the plowing, some equipment use allowances for trucks, plows, and sanders, and the purchase of goods, including salt, which is a pretty big deal. So also eligible for reimbursement is part of the time that we have documented actually working on the administration of this project. The process has just gotten underway. There's going to be meetings with FEMA personnel. We'll be assigned somebody from FEMA to go over stuff with us. And the process is very much like we've been doing for COVID for over 2 years. So we are very well versed in this process by now, and this shouldn't be too much of a problem. We've actually done quite a bit of the work already gathering data. Big thanks to Dan for a lot of help early on in this process with getting us a lot of the data with regard to overtime, the purchase of salt and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of documentation involved, but we've already done a lot of the work. This also includes the school department. They had some expenses with plowing the schools out and perhaps some purchases they bought. So we're getting them involved in this as well. expect the complete process to take somewhere between 6 and 9 months, hopefully closer to the 6. That's what they promise us. There's usually delays, so we expect hopefully, sometime at the end of this year or early next year to receive reimbursement for our expenses. They are reimbursed 75% of what we apply for. That's a FEMA standard for this sort of thing. And our expenses were in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $210,000. We may find a little bit more than that, and there may be some stuff that FEMA says we are not eligible for. So the total that we anticipate hopefully getting would be somewhere in the area of $125,000 to $150,000 reimbursed to us. So it's not everything, but it's good to have this opportunity and to get, some of those expenses reimbursed from FEMA.
Thank you, Mr. Bonds.
Quick question. So where does that money go back into emergency management?
That
Future storms?
decision is above my pay grade.
Yeah, I would think it goes, but well, Malcolm already left, but back into the general budget. That's usually where reimbursements go.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it usually goes back right into the general fund.
Any other questions? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
So the next thing is discussion or updating on the LGBTQ plus Mayor's Advisory Committee that started. The committee met last Wednesday as an introduction and welcome. Meeting went well as far as I learned. First meeting will be held tomorrow on Wednesday, arriving at 6 p.m. Starts at 6 p.m. in the conference room 306. All are welcome. Then in recognition of the annual holiday celebrated throughout Portuguese-speaking communities, officially known as Dia de Camões, de Portugal e das Comunidades Portuguesas, the holiday commemorates the death of Luis de Camões on June 10th, 1580. This is Portugal's national day. Ceremony and flag raising was held earlier today, June 7th, in front of City Hall, in the City Hall lobby.
Mr. Gonzalez, did you mention Pride Month?
No, he
Oh, I'm
skipped
sorry.
F.
Okay, hold on a second. Lost my place here on my sheet.
I saw you. F.
So on June 25th, 2022, there will be a flag raising and other events details to be announced. So monitor our website for the Pride Month and the details involving the flag raising. I did Day of Portugal already.
Yep.
And the
Azorian.
Azorian Day proclamation. In recognition the annual holiday celebrated as the Day of Azores, the Day of Azores is a regional public holiday in the Portuguese autonomous region of the Azores on the day after Pentecost Sunday. It is a day to honor the affirmation of the historical, cultural, and social identity of the Azorean people, their philosophy of life, and their regional unity. Ceremony and flag raising to be held on June 6th, 11 a.m. East Providence, which was yesterday. The ceremony was well attended, and we thank the people that set it up. Every day in the communities across the country, emergency medical services providers put themselves on the line to save lives, safeguard dangerous situations, and deliver hope to families and communities in crisis. With selflessness, professionalism, and grace under fire, they provide essential care, never more so than during our battle with the COVID-19 over the past 2 years. And during EMS week, we honor our heroic frontline workers who provide vital emergency medical care and ease the burden of crisis for East Providence residents and Americans in need.
And lastly,
is the Police Week proclamation. National Police Week is a collaborative effort dedicated to honoring America's law enforcement community and to give special recognition to law enforcement officers who have had lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. Our community recognizes the important work and sacrifices officers make each day to protect the citizens of East Providence.
thank you, sir. Next, reports of other city officials, reports of the city solicitor.
Thank you. The City Council met as a claims committee prior to the meeting in executive session. And we adopted all recommendations for the claims as submitted by the Director of Public Works. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor.
The next item is the resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with MAS Building and Bridge, Inc. for the remaining repairs to the seawall located at Rose Larissa Park. The sponsor is Council Vice President Rodrick.
Mr. President, for a long time now, residents have been concerned about the seawall at Crescent Park crumbling, and it's over 100-year-old wall. I was meant to keep the water back. We've talked about this also several times. I think that part of the process includes we were able to get, maybe Dan can explain it, the granite blocks from the state that were stored on our property. And I believe we got those for free. And there is a low bid received from MAS Building and Bridge Incorporated, the amount of $2,292,000. And that is the recommendation to go with them. And again, a long awaited emergency. Well, this is more of a permanent repair, I would guess.
Yep, this is the permanent repair, long awaited. It was under design. The portion that we repaired was a permanent fix, but on a temporary basis until we could get the final design approved. As the engineers started looking at the the next sections of walls that were already falling over as well, we decided it'd be in the city's best interest to do this as an emergency repair, which fast-tracked this project to get this completed quicker. So you have a few plans in front of you. I don't have an extra copy to talk off of, but the intent is to replace, it's okay. The intent is to replace the existing wall with, if you have been down there, large riprap slope. And if you go to the second page for me there for a minute, this is a cross section. So the slope as it exists now in the section that was repaired looks somewhat like this section. There'll be a piece of sheeting that will further protect the slope. And then you'll see in the cross section here, the granite block, which if you drive by in front of Cello's or Greg's, excuse me, there's a little mock-up of what that wall will actually look like. So the intent is to use a lot of the old granite from the Providence River, and it'll be a beautiful added large savings for the city. On top of that block, we'll have fencing so people can't go off, and we'll have a walking path. We'll have an asphalt path with some benches throughout. If you go back to the first page again for me, please. One thing to note here that I think is a great addition here, we'll have the stairs on the right-hand side or the southern side. Those stairs will be put back. And then on the portion near Beach Road, we actually received some funding from DEM to add some additional stormwater collection to help eliminate runoff that comes down Beach Road. In addition to that, we're also eliminating small portion of the existing seawall that sort of juts out towards the amphitheater. We're going to sort of bring that slope all the way up and create a lot more usable space behind that amphitheater. So it'll sort of level everything out instead of everything kind of sloping down with unusable space. And we'll reconstruct that ADA ramp that's there to re-support it and salvage as much as we can, while also reconnecting to some of the existing paths in the park. So we're excited to move forward on this project. We did go out to bid, emergency bid, to 3 contractors at the recommendation of the design engineer. MAS came in as a low bidder, and they had no reservations, and highly recommend this contractor to complete the work. So we hope to start that very soon, as soon as we can get a PO. in there.
And MAS is doing all the work.
They will do all the
It's
work.
not our workers
Nope.
that
Everything you see there will be done by MAS. This, obviously the seawall being the first, and then they'll work on reconnecting and providing access to long-awaited access to the park.
Yep.
So that's all I have.
No.
Thank you, sir.
Council President, I neglected, we did not vote on the MOU in public on the police contract, correct?
We voted in private. You said you were going to talk
Oh, I
about
was
it.
going to announce the vote. I'm sorry.
Hold on, no.
I did not, yes, I wanted to not vote. So
I
in
was wondering
executive
why
session,
you
Yeah, I'm
held
sorry.
out on all that.
I'm sorry, I forgot about it. In executive session, we discussed at the recommendation of the chief of police and MOU regarding minimum manning of the police department. That vote was unanimous to approve the MOU, which will be executed by all the parties by tomorrow. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Back to the Crescent Park Seawall at Rose Larissa Park. I would move approval as previously described by Director Burns and with the numbers that I mentioned.
Any discussion from the council?
No, second.
No discussion. We have a motion. Second, Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next
Next.
resolution, please.
Next resolution is the resolution allowing the police department of the city of East Providence to collaborate with non-adjacent Rhode Island municipalities and police departments through a proposed statewide mutual aid agreement. The sponsor is Council President Brito.
I'll be very brief with this. It's similar to the one we passed with Seekonk. It's a mutual aid agreement between non-adjacent municipalities and their police departments. Any questions from the council? Someone like to form that into a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to approve, Mr. President.
Okay, do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, may we have roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Is Adjournment.
Move adjournment.
Oh, second.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Yes, please.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you.